Hello, everybody. Today we are here with another Legacy Grixis Delver walkthrough. I'm James Su, and with me is Lawrence Harmon. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, James.
How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Woke up about an hour ago, feeling pretty good. Haven't really slept too much in the last week, but was able to get a good night's rest, so pretty happy about that.
That's good. That's good. And how are things in your area with COVID-19 and all that kind of crazy stuff going on?
For me, it's pretty okay. People did panic buy toilet paper and like ramen noodles, but there's still food left on the shelves. I don't live in a super densely populated area, so there isn't as much panic, and a lot of people are kind of flippant regarding COVID. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Um,
Yeah.
so
I don't know why. I just felt like asking that. It's like supposed to be playing Legacy, but it just seems to be on people's minds. So, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Like for those who are not familiar with your work, like anything you want to plug, anything you want to call out, any podcasts or projects that you have going on.
um, yeah, so me and my friend Steve were doing the Thirst for Knowledge podcast regularly, but we've both cut back on playing a good bit. So at this point, the current plan is just to drop an episode here or there as something interests us, as we, maybe as the metagame shifts. Right now, Legacy did just have the ban, but I don't think the format is going to drastically change from what it was before Underworld Breach was legal. So I don't think there's too much to talk about. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but I'll be on the Dead Format podcast this coming week. And other than that, I do a podcast with my friend, the Cozy Gang podcast. It's just kind of us rambling about whatever crosses our minds.
So
It's been a
it's not
fun
always
thing.
magic, but does it include magic in some way, or it's usually non-magic stuff?
It's usually non-magic stuff, but we've talked about like some of the social aspects of the game, and we met through magic, so it'll come up in conversation, but not like a technical podcast. We're not talking about card specific stuff or anything format related. It's more like social dynamics and things of that nature.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a couple episodes of that. It's quite something. You seem to be a man who's like going after different things, whatever interests you, or whatever doesn't interest you, as is the case of the first podcast you mentioned, right? It really depends.
Hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I've got your image there. People can follow you on Twitter. And let's just talk about Grixis Delver. So we have this list here that we have been brewing up together. Is there anything, any specific things you want to call out on in this list of 75?
For the most part, this is just a stock list. There are a few flex slots in the sideboard: Clinton to Dust, Flusterstorm, and Null Rod. I just grabbed this list from Mengucci's Twitter. He played it in a prelim yesterday. He had 4 Graveyard Hate effects. He had 3 Surgical Extractions and a Tormod's Crypt. I always feel like the third Surgical is a bit extraneous. There aren't many matchups where you board in specifically that card. It's pretty much just sometimes lands and reanimator type strategies. And I don't think you need 4 Graveyard Hate effects in kind of a standard metagame. Here we're trying Cling to Dust, mostly just to see how the card plays out. I haven't had the chance to play with it. It seems reasonable. In the past, people have boarded in like Surgical Extraction against Snapcaster decks, and sometimes that works out. Other times it's pretty bad. Cling to Dust allows you to do that, but since it cantrips, it's a much lower fail rate, or the downside of drawing it is pretty low. You can just cycle it. The Null Rod is just a general catch-all, good against Aether Vial decks, any sort of Karn style strategy. It's just a fairly good catch-all, and I fully expect TES to rise back to the top in terms of being the best combo deck. Veil of Summer is still a prevalent card in the format. and I don't think Ad Nauseam Tendrils can really be a player when all of the fair decks and some of the combo decks are playing 3 to 4 copies of that card. So Null Rod's a good haymaker against Tess, and then the Flusterstorm is just a generally good catch-all, good against combo, good enough in the fair matchups to justify having. So, pretty stock list. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you, because you've been playing, maybe you haven't been playing recently, but I know you've been playing Grixis Delver for quite a while, and I recall you last year you called it something like playing a blue Jund deck. So how does this build compare to something that you were playing in 2019? Like, does it still play out like that, or like how do you feel about that philosophy in general?
Yeah, that's just how I look at Delver decks in general. Even with like Ren and 6 Delver, I saw that as a Jund deck. And basically the idea is, you don't have any stellar matchups, but your deck is proactive enough that you can kind of beat anything. And in sideboarding, you can shift into a control deck, like with Ren and 6 Delver against something like Infect. My boarding plan consisted of cutting all of my Tarmogoyfs, basically almost every creature except for Delver of Secrets, and I would just kill my opponents with Ren and 6 Ultimates and Delver attacking, if Delver ever attacked. A lot of the times I would just flip it and leave it back to block in Inkmoth Nexus. But on the flip side, against something like a Chalice the Void style strategy, you can just be as aggressive as possible and just try and run your opponent down. So I like that style of gameplay, just having the flexibility to mold your deck and shift towards whichever axis you need to attack on to counteract what your opponent's doing.
Yeah, that's what makes Delver so interesting but challenging to play. So that's why I have you here today, because we're going to run through a league together, and hopefully you're going to give me some pointers, because I am not very good with this deck, but I want to be. So let's let's see what happens. All right.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, like a scrub, I ran out of play points, so we're going to have to join with our tickets.
Yeah, that'll happen from time to time. It's been forever since I played, so let's see how rusty I am.
Hopefully you can win some die rolls. Oh, well.
Okay. So one thing I'd say is get used to adding more stops. I play with significantly more stops than this, and Reed Duke actually plays with all of his stops, which is probably something
that's hardcore.
I like playing with more stops because it gives you more chances to stop and think about things.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have stops at baseline on my upkeep, main phase, begin combat. I usually don't have attack and blocks, but damage I'll toggle on and off in combat, second main, and then end step. And then on my opponent's turn, I have upkeep, draw, main phase on, and then also their second main phase and end step. I just like having the ability to make plays in these spots and give myself the option to think about these lines so you can actually catch them in real time, as opposed to finding yourself in your opponent's end step and going, oh, I should have done X, Y, and Z in their damage step or in combat. These things kind of come up.
Oh, for sure. I find that I usually just have it pretty loose, and then sometimes I'll turn on upkeep on my turn. But let's try this. Like I have issues in the past, like just running out of time. But let's give it a shot. So, okay, let's look at the hand here. This looks like a keep, right? It's not optimal.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, I definitely keep this. You have some protection against combo. You have a couple cantrips. You aren't weak to Chalice the Void. If this hand is obviously significantly better on the play, where we'd want to open up with fetch land into Preordain, but this hand is serviceable on the draw.
All right, let's. All right, we're going with a lot of stops here. Oh, I think the sound effects are still on. I gotta turn this off. I've had like.
Okay.
Hey, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I was just turning off the Moto sound effects because it was suggested that I do. All right, let's see here. I think we just Volk Ponder, right? We don't know what they have. We don't know what they're on. I mean, all it was is a Volk.
Yeah, they could be some sort of show and tell strategy. This could be the mirror. They could be representing Stifle. Um, I'm totally fine with Volk Ponder here. We're fine hitting another land in case this is a Wasteland mirror. We're fine hitting more permission. We have a Daze, but if we find like a Force, we love to hold on to that because we don't really want to Daze on turn one since we have this Dreadhorde Arcanist. So I'm fine with Volk Ponder, yeah.
Okay. This is a pretty good hand. I think we just draw into Delver on this turn, right?
I don't think we need Delver. We have a threat. We have a bunch of extra cantrips, so we don't necessarily need them. So I'm actually more interested in just finding land removal or permission, or like a lightning bolt or a fatal push. So I think I would actually shuffle this.
Okay.
Oh, one thing about Moto is I manually stack all of my ponders even when I shuffle them, because sometimes it'll spit out two of the cards in the ponder stack. So
okay.
that's just
a
the Moto tip.
Just a pro tip. Okay, I'm gonna remember to do that.
So Scalding Tarn, great. If our opponent wasteland us, we can survive. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, how I would have stacked that is both brainstorms under the Delver and then hit shuffle and then see where things go from there.
Got it. It looks like a Delver.
So it looks like we are playing.
Yeah. I guess we just Volk Delver go, right? I don't think there's a better play here.
Let's see. I'm mostly thinking about whether or not we want to play around Stifle here. Our opponent is representing it. And with them not applying pressure, I don't think we necessarily need to slam this Delver. So I think I would actually just Strand go here.
And maybe fetch on their upkeep?
No,
we don't even need to. We just hold it, yeah. And we could even just hold it to try to go for that Arcanist.
Well, I would probably Delver on turn 2, like fetch, see what they do.
Oh, you mean right now on their turn? Or?
No, okay. Sorry. Just
you mean on the following turn, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is maybe set up a Delver with a Daze up so that we can Daze a Stifle if they have it.
All right, this is a pretty good draw. So let's we're gonna fetch one, and we're gonna Volk Delver.
I would get Underground Sea here actually. Okay, so they do have Stifle.
The question is, what do we do here? Do we force? Do we? Yeah, we don't want to play into their days, right?
Yeah, I would force pitch Preordain here.
Let's see how hard they want to fight over this. They could have a Spell Pierce, or is that a second force? It is.
Force pitch counterspell. Interesting. Maybe this is some sort of Stifle Not or Land Still deck.
Yeah, counterspell is not a card I see very often. Let me think here.
So they're on 3 cards. Another Stifle is going to be pretty bad for us regardless.
But we're not going to be able to play around that anyway, right?
Yeah, I think we probably just let this all happen. I think we're going to fetch and then still Underground Sea Delver.
We don't have to fetch now. We just wait for the stack to resolve, right?
Yeah, I think we're fine letting the stack resolve, and then we will see what happens here. Another Stifle is worst case.
Worst case, we daze it, right? Oh, we can't daze it. Yeah.
We can't daze it.
Is there a case to pass? To pass? I don't know. I think we're way behind if that happens. But they have 3 cards.
If we pass, we're pretty much just hoping to draw a land to set up basically the same play next turn.
Yeah, and they could cantrip into another Stifle or something, right?
Yeah, I think I like fetching, and then we may want to actually preordain to try and set up another land drop to play around
Yeah.
another wasteland or something of that nature. So I think Underground Sea preordain is probably better here.
Hmm. They might have a daze, but we just go for it. They do have a daze.
Interesting. Yeah, we just let this happen.
We just let it happen.
We could daze back to protect our land for a turn, but I don't think that's necessarily that great here. So our opponent their hand is Tropical Island, 2 unknowns. We're hoping that they don't have a wasteland, and we are hoping that they slam a 2-drop into our daze.
Hmm.
So let's see. The worst case scenario.
Oh, that's not bad. So is there a case to daze this?
Yeah, I would daze this.
I daze it so I can at least play a Delver next turn.
Yeah, I don't like that play from them.
But
This
we're
gives
pretty
us the
behind.
opportunity to like draw a Gurmag Angler or something, or if we draw a Wasteland, we can now Wasteland their Wasteland or Wasteland their Volcanic Island. Likely Wasteland their Wasteland.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I would just ponder for another land here. Their hand is Tropical Island blank. Worst case scenario is Oko.
That's
So
a
we have
shuffle,
to shuffle
right?
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put the Force of Will on top and then shuffle.
That's
Okay.
not bad.
Perfect. So we're going to get Wastelanded and probably fetch Volk, play Delver, assuming that the Delver will die, and then the follow-up play will be hoping to draw land for Arcanus, and the reason we're fetching Volk is in case we draw Wasteland.
Mhm. Yeah, then we can still cast it.
So they play Trop, they have Force of Will, Unknown.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe it's a Lightning Bolt, but we'll see.
It usually is.
If they had like a Spell Pierce or something, I think they probably would have used it earlier in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so I like
Just play
just
Delver,
Vault
right?
Delver.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the question becomes, if they bolt, do we force to protect our Delver so that we can potentially block? I don't think so. I think forcing through an Arcanus through their Force of Will, if they go that route, is probably more value. Also, the Brazen Borrower here is still important.
How do you
that
feel?
Counterspell is interesting.
Mhm.
It makes me
is-
think like they could be a lower threat count or creature count list. Maybe Hooting Mandrills somewhere between like 2 and 3 Tarmogoyfs. So we'll see. Lightning Bolt is great.
Mhm.
I would actually just pass the turn and bolt on their upkeep.
Mm-hmm. You mean just hold the
And-
Delver back just to in case you want to trade kind of thing? Because we're way behind.
Yeah, pretty much. Right now we're just playing defensively. Our opponent is low on resources from fighting over our mana base.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as we can keep the board clear, we give ourselves time to get Dreadhorde down, maybe leverage Brazen Borrower. So we just bolt here, make them decide if they're Force of willing this bolt, which I'm inclined to think they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Force pitch Force, and they have an unknown. That's fine. Yeah.
And we just trade it. We just offer the trade, right? Or if they offer the trade.
Yeah. But I don't think they can. Oh, interesting.
That's interesting. I think we do have to trade.
Yeah. So this makes me think that they could have another threat, or they could just have more permission.
Mm-hmm. But either way,
so
I
we'll
think
see.
you block it, right?
Yeah, you definitely take this trade. We can't afford to. We have to protect our life total a bit at this point. Hex Drinker. I think we have to Force of Will that. So Hex Drinker, Stifle Delver makes me think that they're on a list similar to the one Rock posted on Twitter not too long ago. Unfortunate. This is one of the downsides of Grixis specifically.
Yeah, you don't
all
have
of these
basic
non-basics.
lands.
Yeah. But luckily our opponent is floundering on threats. So also unfortunate.
Yeah,
but
case in point number 2.
I don't think maybe we would cast that there. We'd probably just slam the Dread Horde and hope for no days, but this seems like a Hooting Mandrills. Yep. All right. So we got by Stifle.
Mm-hmm.
So here a Brainstorm into like a fetch land and a Gurmag is the best thing. Yeah. Looks like we're just gonna flood out on Thoughtseizes.
That's right. I don't think there's much value to bluff, right? Just F6.
No, just recoup some time.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe we have one option.
Yep.
Amazing. There was no end step bolt.
No, they're gonna go for lethal if they
Go
have
for the
bolt.
face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tramples.
We can't afford to block here, so
We just have
have to hope to fade the bolt. Yeah.
Now we're going to see the still got all these.
I'm expecting them to bolt in upkeep if they have it. Okay, Ponder, sure. Upkeep bolt is to play around force negation specifically.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think the only thing we have to do is just try to... No, actually, no. Fatal Push doesn't even kill that thing. I think we're just
We
hooped.
can't push. We... So you attack and ponder for another copy of Brazen Borrower. That's our best bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I feel like Death and Taxes. We've drawn the wrong half of our deck.
Yeah. Sometimes that'll happen. Well,
shuffle away, right?
Yep. Brainstorm still gives us a chance here if we hit exactly Underground Sea plus Gurmag, so may as well fire it off and see what we find.
And that was
all right,
not it.
we're dead.
All right.
So the turn where we went for the fetch lands, it maybe would have been better to pitch the Brazen Borrower as opposed to one of the Preordains, just so that we could navigate our deck a bit better. That would protect us from the fail case. But here, against Stifle...
Let's talk about what cards are good to bring in here. They are some kind of rug Stifle Delver list.
So I like Flusterstorm and at least 2 Pyroblasts. And the Thoughtseizes are pretty easy cuts.
Yeah, generally in Delver style matchups, I think they're not too great. I think Mystic Sanctuary is a good inclusion here.
I think I like Sanctuary a bit more on the draw as just an extra land drop, but on the play, I think we can get away without it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is cut Force of Negation and Force of Will for 2 Plague Engineers, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Just for Death Touch bodies, yep.
Yeah, can you sort the deck by curve?
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
It would be good to just put in Sanctuary, since we're boarding in the Plague
Converted
Engineers.
mana cost, is this good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Danes. Brazen Borrower is not the best card here. Yeah, I think I like cutting a Borrower for a Sanctuary.
Do we want to play a third
and
Red
this is-
Blast? Because we know for sure they're going to have Oko, right?
Yeah, that is a consideration. We can cut the other Borrower. I don't think it's really that great of a card in these Delver Mares. It's expensive. The bounce effect is not a clean trade.
You're talking about
So-
cutting both.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, what comes in? Do we just play in a Braid or
The Sanctuary.
the Sanctuary? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
so
go up to 20 lands.
sweet. All right, let's give this a try.
Normally I'd shave more Force Wills in Delver Mares, but as better cards have gotten printed and they've gotten more bomby, I like having
Okay, so this is a
a
key,
higher...
right?
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I just considering the clock. That's all. Sorry if
Oh,
I'm
it's
cutting
fine.
you off.
Oh, it's all good. I would just fetch a Underground Sea and play Delver here. We want to get under Stifle, and we want to get a clock going. They have to answer our Delver, and then we have a few follow-up plays. So this is a good spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Totally fine. I think we still slam the Arcanist on turn 2, and I think we do it without fetching, right?
Correct. Yeah, I want to preserve the fetch here, even though Stifle is a consideration. And I like slamming Arcanist. They either have to daze. If they do any sort of counter magic, we're fine with that. Because they're either setting themselves back on a land drop or losing 2 cards. And if they bolt, that'll happen.
Mm-hmm. Looks like they're forcing.
Yep.
Force pitch Stifle.
So force pitch. This is fine.
Yeah.
Do you have your hotkeys at the default?
At the default, what does that mean? Like, I'm just pressing
Or-
1 and 6 on my keyboard.
Okay. So you probably didn't change your hotkeys at all. I usually use 2 a lot. What that does is it passes priority as if you're F6'd until you're in a spot where I like slamming this Dreadhorde here.
Just with the Valk, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What 2 does is it passes priority until your opponent makes a play, and then it'll give you priority again. So it
Okay.
just saves some time.
What if I press 2 now? Like, does it do anything? Or I haven't
Yeah.
hotkeyed it? Oh, it looks like
It'll
has.
just pass.
Okay.
Yep. 2 will pass through your turn, like an F6 if
Mhm.
nothing happens, or pass through the turn.
Unless they do something, kind of thing.
Right. So it just lets you cut down on time while also letting you represent counter magic or some sort of effect. So it lets you get some of the time-saving aspect of F6, but it also gives you a bit of bluffing value.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, this is fine. They're just looking for a bolt, which is reasonable. And they shuffled. Okay.
So
I think I would ponder here. I don't want to burn the brainstorm just yet. We're not particularly looking for too much. This is great. I would put Preordain on the bottom, put Delver of Secrets on top of that, and then draw the Force of Will.
Oh,
And
I see.
then
Draw the
I
Force Will.
would,
Gotcha.
yeah. And then I would play the Polluted Delta and just attack and cast Ponder again, drawing the Delver, and then I would just play the Delver.
Hmm.
In that way, we have forward momentum. We are protected from like a Tarmogoyf for a creature if they play anything, and then we have a Force of Will for like an Oko, and then this also sets us up with multiple threats. So
Looks like we
yeah,
still
put
put,
Tarn on the bottom.
yeah, basically the same order here. Yeah, this is fantastic.
Yep. And with this Brainstorm in hand, assuming we don't pitch it to Force, the Tarn is not a horrendous draw in case they like stifle our Polluted Delta. So this is looking pretty good here.
Now, do you use the F2 even on your opponent's turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does the same thing regardless. So like it's just a nice way to save time and pass priority without getting caught in a situation where you go, oh, I meant to answer this.
Mm-hmm.
Nimble Mongoose, interesting. I don't think we can Force of Will a Nimble Mongoose here.
Yeah, we're okay with it,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think if we get even a little bit more value out of this Dread Horde or one more turn of value, we're totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
The question is whether or not
We can attack into
we
it.
want to. Well, we're going to attack into it. The question is whether or not we want to fetch. If we fetch, we open the door for a stifle to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to get them to burn the stifle on. I would just draw a card, draw for turn.
Just draw the Preordain.
Yeah. And let's see. We can Brainstorm. We know there's a land and 2 blanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then hold the Preordain for a Force of Will. I think I like brainstorming here.
Just brainstorm. Don't fetch yet.
Yeah. I'm fine with our opponent eating this Dread Horde here. Okay, this is really good. I would put Scalding Tarn and Preordain back on top in that order. And then I would just attack.
So you would actually attack with the Dreadhorde just to get that brainstorm value as opposed to holding it back?
Yeah, so this puts our opponent in a position where they either have to stifle a Dreadhorde trigger to get to Threshold along with fetching, or they have to just let it through. So it's either a safe attack here or it's them just burning resources, and if they crack the fetch, then a future cantrip gets much worse for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can kind of just keep them in this holding pattern. So, yeah. And
do we Pyroblast this?
Let's see, we have Preordain and a fetch land on top, right?
Yeah.
I would fetch here.
Just fetch
now.
They do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fetch for Underground Sea, obviously.
Yeah. And then I think I do like Pyroblasting here. And then if they Flusterstorm or Spell Pierce, it isn't the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Oh, I guess I missed it. I should have dazed if I wanted to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a good window to daze, but it's okay. I think they're going to use some sort of counter magic. Veil
I guess
of Summer.
I can daze that now.
I would.
Do I
Do we
care
even hit a
about
land
it?
drop this turn? I would daze the Veil for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I would pick up the Volk. Normally I'd want to pick up the Underground Sea here, but we can hit a Gurmag Angler, and our deck is mostly blue-red, so I think I just like picking up the Volk and leaving us the potential to find a to find like a Gurmag or just any, like a Delver is fine as well.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we're going to be Brainstorm locked, but I'm okay with this for now.
Yeah.
And, our opponent is... They have a Nimble Mongoose, but we're winning the race. Okay, that's the worst case scenario, but I would put back Volk and a fetch land.
So
and then I would just.
we played a land for this turn, right?
I don't believe we did.
Okay, so just you're actually not putting back 2 Volks because you don't want to get hit by Stifle again. So you put back a Volk and a Scalding Tarn, let's say.
Right. So, yeah, that's the worst case. We wanted to hit at least 1 blue card. So a lightning bolt here gets really bad for us. And here I would just play the Flooded Strand and
Oh geez, I should not have pressed. Oh geez.
Here's to hoping we don't get punished. Wasteland is acceptable. And we're going to fetch in their upkeep. We're going to play the Strand and then fetch in their upkeep.
Okay.
A second goose. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
So now we have to... I think we now have to trade off Delver. Let's see. Yeah, we have to crack our fetch and leave Delver back to block, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would just crack it now to not play into any stifles they may draw. There's no reason to wait here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're getting Underground Sea, right?
Yeah.
This is the last one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna actually trade with one of their mongoose.
Yep.
Okay.
So here's to hoping they don't draw anything of worth. Them attacking indicates a creature being drawn, but as long as it's not a Hooting Mandrills or a Nimble Mongoose, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Flusterstorm. I would just play the Scalding Tarn and pass here.
This is something I really need to work on, is not missing land drops when I'm recording. Brainstorm. Do we fluster? I don't think so.
There's consideration of Force of Willingness, but I think I want to hold the Force to protect a Gurmag or anything we draw.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this does give them some card selection, but I don't think we can fight over this Brainstorm here.
This is the first time playing Magic Online I've ever run into a Nimble Mongoose in, I don't know, 200, 300 matches.
You'll run into them every once in a while. Usually the people who play Nimble Mongoose are pretty devoted to the card, so they're...
So I need to make a note of his username or their username.
Yeah. We don't have a cantrip, so fetching Mystic Sanctuary doesn't really do anything here.
Yeah, that's right.
So...
That's interesting. Do we Flusterstorm this?
Yeah, I would Flusterstorm that using Volk. If they're Brainstorm locked, we kind of want to keep them Brainstorm locked, and I think we just have to hope that they don't have a follow-up of a Hooting Mandrills here.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Okay.
We can just EOTQ it now, right?
Yep. Preordained.
That's not bad.
Hold on a second here. Okay, yeah, this is fine. I would just preordain off of Volk. I just wanted to make sure we didn't want to um, do anything with Mystic Sanctuary here.
Speak of the devil.
This is a bottom.
Yeah. That's not bad. I think. Well, they have 0 cards, so we could just play it out, or we could play it with the Volcanic.
I would play the Volcanic, and then I would fetch Mystic Sanctuary here. And get Preordain, and we're gonna play Young Pyromancer and Preordain in the same turn.
Oh, I see.
There's no reason to.
So you mean just basically wait till next turn, just Volk pass.
Volk, I would fetch now, just to continue playing around Stifle, and then put Preordain on top here. They could have a removal spell on top, and we don't want to expose Pyromancer to that. And if they do decide to stifle a Pyromancer trigger, that's fine. But playing Pyromancer and getting it, having anything happen to it would be a pretty terrible scenario when we're this low on resources. Yeah, so I would play Pyromancer off of Sanctuary and Volk, and then
basically continue keeping the sea open, right?
I would actually tap the sea. We get punished if we find exactly Gurmag here, but we have like a Lightning Bolt. We have Lightning Bolts, Pyroblast, etc. in our deck, so it's better to leave up red.
Gotcha.
So, Spell Pierce. Okay. Well,
that
fine. Wasn't a card I was playing around, but I don't think we play around that in most cases. So,
not at 4 life. Okay, so that's all we can do.
Yep. So if that was a Spell Pierce, and that was, this card has to be pretty bad. Probably a land or maybe a Stifle or another Spell Pierce.
Is there ever a case to be made for trading with the Mongoose?
I think there could be. If we trade and...
Oh, we could trade next turn.
They don't have a
or we
threat.
could jump next turn. Yeah, do we trade? That's the question.
I think we do trade here. I don't think they have another creature. They could have a Lightning Bolt specifically, but
then
I think that
we're dead anyways if they do, right? Well, not quite, but
not quite. It would be odd for them to stack a creature under the Spell Pierce. I guess they just wanted to get Young Pyromancer off the table. Yeah, slam Dreadhorde.
All right, it's time for the comeback.
And then,
what's happening?
Spell Snare.
That is old school, baby. Yeah.
So Spell Pierce into Spell Snare, and they lined up. That's pretty nice for the opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just F6. There's no point in bluffing anything.
I think we just waste their Volk. Yeah.
No, don't waste.
We just keep it up for the Force of Will.
Yeah. So you'll want to start using 2 here.
Yeah. So I don't skip over that.
Okay. Wooded Foothills and Oko.
That is definitely
true name. Yep. And if you hold down W while you're tapping mana, Moto will default to using the first
option
land type. Yeah.
Got it.
All right, so we just play Delver here. And then we hold up Wasteland, just hit 2. And we're at the point in the game where just hit 2, yeah. We're at the point in the game. Don't Wasteland, yeah. We're at the point in the game where if they cast a cantrip, we're going to Wasteland their fetch land. Delver is unfortunate, but here we are. Volk. Okay. I would offer the trade, and if they don't take it, wasteland their wooded foothills.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, this was maybe bad. Now they can just draw. Yeah, if they draw Bolt, we're dead regardless. And then here, you just F6. So.
Yeah.
Dismember. Okay. So we need to draw one of our Pyroblasts or something of that nature.
Well, naturally, they want to see what we have first. So...
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like we can only go for one thing.
They're going to dismember here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Put back Plague Engineer and...
Inland.
Yeah. Plague Engineer and Volk. And then we're going to ponder using Volk, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so then we blast them.
Yep. That stacking is fine, and just fire off the blast. It's unfortunate. If they draw a Hex Shrinker, they can level it up enough to get around Plague Engineer, but... Okay, they drew the Bolt.
Wow. Okay, that was that was quite something. Anything you want to say about that matchup at all?
The turn where we missed the land drop potentially changed the... Well, depending on what we would have drawn, could have changed the course of the game. The Spell Pierce lining up is unfortunate, but I don't think we play around that ever. And the Spell Snare was, Spell Pierce into Spell Snare is just lucky stacking on their part. I don't think you're supposed to keep Spell Snare under Spell Pierce there when we have that much mana. Other than that, you can see why normally you'd gravitate towards cutting Force of Will in these sort of matchups. It is prone to getting stuck in your hand. But again, unfortunately, these Delver decks have started to become a bit more bomby, so we're keeping in more Force of Wills in the mirror, whereas before we'd cut them for like a Braids or, just things that can convert much easier. And that's the struggle, right? We could cut our Force of Wills, and if they resolve an Oko, then that's an unfortunate place to be.
Yeah.
Or we keep our Force of Wills and sometimes die with them in hand. It's a weird Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
But against Stifle, I tend to keep in more Force of Wills just as a way to protect the mana base.
Okay, I will join this match. Let's see what we get.
Oh, it's Sammy Rooks.
Oh, is this Sammy Rooks? I had no idea.
This is. We're gonna keep this hand.
Knowing him. Well, it's fine. Anyways.
Well, it's more that it's just a reasonable hand, and Sam has a wider range than most people think. So in leagues, he tends to play more of just things that interest him.
Yeah.
Ponder, no shuffle. Let's see what we draw here. Gurmag Angler.
Do we wasteland?
Um,
Probably not, because he didn't shuffle, right?
So if this is miracles, getting a wasteland to convert is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
If we preordain here, we don't really want to daze. I actually do just like wastelanding and resetting the board here. Um, it gives us more information. Sometimes he plays that what is it? The Hollowed Spirit Keeper deck. So I kind of want a little more information on my cantrip here.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this gives us the chance to like draw a Thoughtseize or something. So I would play Volcanic Island and preordain. And the reason we're playing Volk here is in case we end up in a situation where we want to brainstorm into Thoughtseize.
We like both of these cards, right? Maybe not the bolt.
Yeah. I think we do like both of them because we have the brainstorm here. So I would just draw the
bolts,
lightning bolt, and then keep the Dread Horde on top. Yeah.
Yeah, just play around, discard or something.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what he has, and we can brainstorm to reset if necessary. But it's likely that our next turn is just going to be Underground Sea, play a 2-drop.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's
I think
what
I like playing Young Pyromancer here.
Just to draw out some kind of removal if they have it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's something I'm never sure about, is like, I guess you should always assume they have some answer for it, and so you play out the weaker threat if there's no other pressure on board.
Yeah. If this is like both Young Pyromancer and Dread Horde are good cards against like a control deck, but Dread Horde basically being a Jace the Mind Sculptor is pretty high value.
Mm-hmm.
So baby. Here I would brainstorm
off of
Volcanic Island.
Oh, interesting.
But, play your land first to play around Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
And but my suspicion, or what I suspect, is that he has a Terminus on top, but we'll find out. So yeah, I would just brainstorm off of Volk.
Sure. So let's just not overextend, right? Let's not play any other creatures.
Right. I would put back Flooded Strand and
Bolt.
We want the Bolt in case we need to clear out an Oko at some point.
Right.
Is it,
maybe
Flooded Strand is going back.
Yeah, it's going back, and then maybe a Young Pyromancer. No, Young Pyromancer's got value. Maybe the second Arcanist or the Angler.
It's between second Arcanist and Angler. I think it's Angler, though. Okay. Yeah, I like putting back Angler.
Right.
And then I would
just attack. Oh no, wait. I guess we can just go into combat first.
I wouldn't go into combat yet.
Oh, geez. Okay. My bad. I will just.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just realized. Okay, they might have the.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have the Ice Fang Coatl.
Yeah, we wanted to ponder there to potentially find a daze before. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine. We have a Bolt here, so that's some reprieve.
The question is, do we brainstorm first?
No, we just let it hit the table, and then trigger on the stack. We bolt it.
Okay, so right now, basically.
Yep. And then if he Force of Wills, we'll fire off a Brainstorm just to get another token, maybe a Daze.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's looking... All right, now question is, do we ponder?
I would ponder for a Force here. You're in combat.
Oh, yes.
Control Z.
Yeah.
If the additional stops are messing with your muscle memory, it's fine to remove them.
This is
so these lightning bolts
shuffle, right?
Are not. Yeah.
Okay.
What do
you know?
Redrawing a bolt is fine.
Yeah.
And then you just have 2 here, and
yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So that
Digging.
wasteland actually got to convert in a relevant way, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so he has a plow. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's
fine.
yep. There's no reason not to
So
attack first, right?
no, there isn't a reason to not attack first. So the question here is, do we commit into Terminus for one turn with a super high upside? All right, so we can play Young Pyromancer, Brainstorm, try and find a Thoughtseize, and that would be fine.
Okay.
Or we can play double Dread Horde.
There's no reason not to play the land because. Oh,
Right.
okay. Well, he only has a green, so
If we double Dread Horde and get Terminus, how bad is that for us? Let's see. We own 5 cards. If he follows up with like an Oko, that's pretty terrible. Pyromancer Brainstorm can find permission. I think I like Pyromancer into Brainstorm.
okay. So that's pretty good.
I would put Gurmag on top. I would put Flooded Strand on top and then Gurmag on top of it. And then I would just hold on to the days.
Yeah, just get some free value with the days. If they're in case they slam Jace or some crazy.
Yep.
I'm okay with the stops. I just really just need to get used to it.
So Teferi.
That's annoying.
I would
just days.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I would days here. And then I think we're fetching away the Gurmag.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this happens.
All right, they only have a green, so there's nothing they can do, right? So we're just gonna kill Teferi with one dude first.
Yep.
Oh, I hope I'm clicking correctly here.
If you hit right click,
Right click.
right click on like a gray part of the table.
Yeah.
Just hit attack with all creatures, target the zookeeper.
Mm-hmm. And then take one back, and then we'll do Teferi, and then we're good.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we go to second main, and then we are going to still the Young Pyromancer, right?
Yeah, I think we play Volk Young Pyromancer here.
Let's leave up the lightning bolt. Oh wait, oh geez, I should have played the land.
No, this is fine. We want to preserve the fetch for a cantrip, which is why we played the Volk. So Astrolabe, yes.
Yes, we finally see you.
Here's to hoping no. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mystic Sanctuary, getting back Ponder, okay. Snake, okay.
We bolt it now, right?
Let's think this through.
We don't actually need to bolt it.
We don't need to bolt it here.
We can
I don't
attack.
think.
We can go wide and save it.
He needs to ponder into a brainstorm or terminus to set up a Brainstorm.
Chooses to shuffle. That's a good
So
sign.
I would just bolt his face here
Just right
on his
now.
end step.
Okay,
End step it.
sure. Just so
But
I
yeah.
can get a non-summoning sick.
Yeah. We make him have to find the blind flip terminus, and then we can play our Dread Horde.
Yep.
And this also sets up lethal through like a plow, so he has to have like double plow.
So we just attack with everything but the Young Pyromancer. No, we have to attack
we
with
attack
everything.
with Pyromancer.
Right, because we're going lethal. Okay.
So here, Mystic Sanctuary, the Painful Truths, the Red Blasts, Flusterstorm, and then maybe Cling to Dust.
What about Plague Engineers? Do you think they're worth anything? Or they're just not better than what we have in the deck?
I'm not sure we have the room for them, so they're fine. They line up well against Snake, but they're a bit ambitious.
Yeah.
I would cut all the Wastelands to start with, and then we have 4 more cuts. We cut a Fatal Push. How good is Brazen Borrower? It's not the best.
It's essentially
Just
just
a
a flash
threat.
creature. Yeah. I'm thinking maybe cutting 2 dazes.
Usually in these matchups, I keep pretty much all of my permission. We can shave one of the dazes on the draw. We can shave.
Anglers are not great, but
I'm fine with shaving 1 Angler and 1 Bolt and seeing how that works out.
okay.
I'm still iffy on Brazen Borrower, and I'm iffy on this Cling to Dust, but we'll see. It seems fine against opposing Mystic Sanctuary, so we'll see how this works out and get a feel for where to go.
And we want the full 3 Thoughtseize, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's give this a shot.
So one thing that's nice about that 4-color control deck is that without Astrolabe, its mana basically doesn't work. This hand is
This is
great.
good. Yep. We got the key to these matchups is just to land some quick threats.
Yep.
Right. Oftentimes you daze their Astrolabe and they're not really in the game. But
Painful Truths. I think I just like Volk Delver go here.
yeah. That's
He
usually
either has to plow it or he has to play a snake. So next turn we just play our Scalding Tarn and see what he does. All right, he's gonna Red Blast. Okay, that's fine. And another Astrolabe. That's fine. So here we're gonna brainstorm and try and find a Thoughtseize while he doesn't have Veil of Summer mana up.
Oh, we have the Thoughtseize. So
Or we just draw it. Just fetch and play Thoughtseize then.
Yeah.
And then we'll ponder afterwards and get more info. Or once we have info. So plow, ponder, brainstorm. He has double island, so island. This doesn't particularly matter too much, I guess. Let's see. Ponder can set up a terminus. Brainstorm is kind of, I think
we still take Brainstorm, right? Because they have a fetch land. It's basically the highest value card they have.
it's hard to say. Brainstorm and Ponder are actually pretty close in value here. I actually think the Ponder is higher value because he doesn't actually want to cast this Brainstorm because his hand is just good. So I would Ponder here for another land. And
This is good. I think
this is good.
We want to basically just keep.
Yeah,
we'll just draw Painful Truths, right?
Right. So what I think we're going to do, I actually wanted to draw the Volk there.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my bad.
But this is fine. So
Okay,
yeah,
I
just
see.
it doesn't matter how you stack here. But the reason to draw Volk was so that we could Painful Truths and then set up a line with like Painful Truths plus Thoughtseize but
Mm,
this is fine. We're gonna draw another land. It's not the end of the world.
okay.
Wonder if he has counterbalance. Just another astrolabe. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna fetch a volcanic island and slam painful truths for 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, let's do it.
go from there.
Well,
Okay.
that's
This is reasonable.
it's good. We don't have to discard.
So he uses fetch land, which is nice. He probably has another one.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case is okay. Teferi is unfortunate.
It's
but,
unfortunate, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So he's just getting value here, which is nice. So we can just Thoughtseize him
Mm-hmm.
and then bolt his Teferi.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, I would Thoughtseize first. See what's up. Brainstorm, plow. His hand is kind of not the best. I would actually take a brainstorm here.
Yep. And then we're gonna bolt to fairy. Or is it even worth
Yeah.
bolting?
I would bolt a fairy while we have the chance under counter magic.
Yeah.
And then I
We
would
basically
here.
ponder, try to get into another land here. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
good. The question, I think we just play land and leave force will on top, right?
We can hold the force. I would stack it land, and then draw force. We don't need to hit this land drop here, and something
Just-
like an Oko
Sure.
would in the game. So we want to set up some protection here.
Yep.
And then I think next turn, what we're going to do is just land go, and then play Brazen Borrower on his end step.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, we wanted to force that potentially.
Oh,
yeah, I think
jeez.
we did.
Okay.
Yeah, because his hand was so bad. But let's see what he does here. Sure, ponder is fine. Okay, so he
It's
shuffled.
a shuffle, yeah. So we're basically, you
And
said we're gonna fetch.
Actually,
oh,
yeah,
yes.
fetch, get Mystic Sanctuary,
For painful truths.
and then No, Thoughtseize. And then we're going to
Gotcha.
preordain into Thoughtseize. And then we're going to set up a line where we can actually play this Brazen Borrower.
We're gonna get Thoughtseize right now with the Sanctuary.
Yes.
Okay, we just did that, and then we're going to sorry, we're
Preordain
going
off
to
of-
we're going to preordain off of the Sanctuary.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Cling to Dust is probably not good enough here.
It's not good.
Maybe it's fine, actually. No, it's fine. Put Cling to Dust on top.
Okay.
Because if he has another fetch land, we can set up Brazen Borrower with Cling to Dust up to snag Plow.
That's
So Snake
interesting.
is annoying, but fine.
We don't force it, right?
No.
Okay. Do we Flusterstorm this?
Flusterstorm, the Brainstorm.
Okay.
Yeah.
EE.
Engineered explosives. That's fine.
Do we take the
We
ponder?
have cling to dust and plow. This ponder is better than this plow. So yeah, take ponder. And then we'll just gain 3 from the plow.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can convert that into another painful truths or whatever. So his hand is EE plow, right?
Yeah.
And okay, cool. So I would just pass here.
Just pass.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then we're just gonna hard cast Brazen Borrower on his instep. And we're gonna hold up the Underground Sea for, yeah, Astrolabe is fine. Yep.
Okay, now we're going to cast it.
Yep. So let's see here. I would brainstorm tapping the Mystic Sanctuary here. Yep, that's fine.
Looks like a hard cast Force of Will. Oh.
Just clink. Eat that with Cling to Dust.
Okay. Well,
okay.
There's nothing we can do there.
That happens. Yep.
That's interesting.
So you put Volk and Underground Sea.
Yeah, we're going to shuffle that away.
Back. Yeah. And then I would just play the Scalding Tarn and the Dread Horde here.
Play it first.
And then
we do want to attack.
We're just going to leave. No, we're just going to leave Brazen Bar back. No, attack. That's fine. He has to plow Dread Horde, I guess. So it's going to be life neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be fine here for a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Two Mystic Sanctuaries. It's becoming pretty standard, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So that was expected.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he's leaving that back.
So we fetch. We'll just fetch on our upkeep.
Yep, get an Underground Sea.
Oh,
and
okay. We just Painful Truths, right?
Yeah, I like casting Painful Truths here. Snake, sure. There was some consideration of playing the land to play around like a Flusterstorm, but here we are. Jesus.
Well, yeah, we drew them all, so I guess we just play Featherstrand Pass,
I would
right? Play Volk.
I would play Volk here.
Yeah, because we don't want the life loss.
And then, what is Cling to Dust, like, return costs? It's 4 mana?
4 mana, yeah. And do we have any creature cards? I don't think we actually do to gain life.
No. There aren't any creatures in the yard yet.
Yeah, not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, are we going to see the beatdown plan from the snakes?
Yeah, definitely attacking here, and we have to trade.
Yeah.
But this Cling to Dust actually may do something
Mm-hmm.
of worth in terms of being able to stifle his pressure.
Mm-hmm. I think we drew all the lands in our deck by now.
Almost.
Almost, yeah. 15 lands. Oh, that sucks.
Okay.
I think we
I
just
would play. Yeah, I would play Strand, and I think we are upkeep
clinging to dust.
casting Cling to Dust on
Okay.
Ice Fang Coatl. Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's one extra. It's got to
Exile
be
the lands and Painful Truths. I wouldn't worry about. I wouldn't exile Delver. Yeah.
yeah.
So that gives us a little bit of reprieve. This Daze can buy back a Brainstorm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not bad.
Okay. Yeah, Ponder is great. Brainstorm is. I would actually just draw the Ponder and then fetch.
And then ponder, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We are down to our last land. Oh, that's not bad. Do we play out the Delver this turn? No, then the Borrower is kind of like... I think we want the Borrower, right?
Yeah, we draw Borrower.
We draw Borrower and then Delver after that? Or... No, I think Pyroblast. We can answer anything they have.
Pyroblast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put the Delver on the bottom, and then we're just going to cast Cling to Dust again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can play the fetch. It
just
doesn't really matter.
We're gonna play the Clean to Dust on their upkeep again.
We'll probably end step it this time. Potentially, we'll see what happens on his turn.
Okay, but we don't play this out now, right? We just wait.
Yep.
You mean we should Clean to Dust now, or
no? Just
in response,
turn.
Yeah, in response to whatever they want to do.
Looks like somebody drew a Terminus.
Hmm.
We may actually just Cling to Dust, like a Red Blast or something. Just take this. This is fine.
Mm-hmm. Clean to Dust a Terminus.
Just go to the end step and then Cling to Dust like a Red Blast, I think.
All right, so we're not taking Delver. We're getting rid of Painful Truths. Oh, we shouldn't get rid of Borrower. Land.
Thoughtseize. Brainstorm and Preordain. Yep, this is fine. Okay. Yeah, just untap and draw.
Mm-hmm.
And then play Delver off of Mystic Sanctuary and
that's it?
Pass the turn. Yeah. And I think we will...
Are we going to Pyroblast the snake? We will do that end step, right? We'll take the one.
We'll see what he does.
That's
Plow.
interesting.
I'm fine with a plow here. Plow's fine. Just hit one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cast Brazen Borrower on the end step.
Okay. brainstorm first.
I would no. I would just pass turn. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just pass turn here. We're gonna cling to dust again on the end step, eating one of our creatures, and then that gives us some room to actually maneuver. Explosives for 3. Sure. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Sure.
Yep. I would just blast now.
Just blast it now.
Yep.
Okay.
And then cling to dust the coatl on the end step. You can exile Flusterstorm, yeah.
Yeah, we're at 3 minutes, so hopefully we'll... Ike. Brainstorm.
Brainstorm here. We don't need to Thoughtseize yet.
That's a good card. Let's put Daze. No.
Force of Will and Brainstorm on top.
It's not Force of Will and Thoughtseize? I think we Thoughtseize this turn, right? Okay.
We're Thoughtseizing this turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then, hold on.
Oh.
No, it's fine. I think we wanted to Thoughtseize first to clear the way of a plow, because we don't want to actually Force of Will a plow here.
My apologies. I'm just playing a little bit more scattered brain right now.
It's okay. Veil of Summer. I'm okay with the Veil of Summer. Just, it's fine. Let that happen. And just hit F2, yeah. And we know we have Brainstorm on top, so that's fine.
Yep. Do we...
Terminus. Daze that. We're just dazing that to buy back Mystic Sanctuary. We're not going to actually fight over it. Actually, maybe we do.
Yeah.
Force Fetch Force, yeah. Okay. We can just attack here, I think, and Cling to Dust is just gonna get us more cards.
So we're not even going to Brainstorm?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's no reason to Brainstorm. We know there's a Force of Will on top, so we can just,
if we need
wait another turn.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would just Cling to Dust, clicking random cards, and exiling, like, Terminus, I guess. And, yeah, just cards at random at this point.
Okay. We're done.
And then, yep, just attack with only the tokens.
Okay.
And I would just pass again.
Okay. Oh no, we should play a Preordain, right?
No, just hold the Preordain.
Okay.
We're gonna Brainstorm end of turn with Force of Will hardcast up. Oh, it's
fine.
Jeez.
Oh no.
Just
just
attack with the tokens.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think at this point we're just gonna
we're gonna have just F2.
Yeah, it's the race against time here. I think we Force a Will this.
Just let him put it on the stack first.
Oh, okay, sure. Oh, so he's not.
This is fine. Just he's gonna hard cast it. cast Brainstorm here.
Sure. Let's cast Brainstorm. I see. Yeah, we're gonna be able to force pitching. It doesn't matter.
Okay, put.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we got like 20 seconds.
Yep. And then he's gonna hard cast. Will force a will.
Pitching with Dace.
Sure. It doesn't particularly matter what we pitch at this point.
Sure.
And then just attack here.
Yep.
So if you hit F2, it'll take you straight into combat. And then you
Okay.
can just right-click attack all. Yeah.
Trying to do that, but it's his move.
Yeah.
You must be a Magic Online veteran. It's like I'm just sweating bullets here, trying to play fast enough. Is he just going to the washroom and coming back, or what?
Maybe. We'll see.
This is the I'm gonna pass priority when at a strategic time when my opponent has 16 seconds left.
Yeah.
Use the RNG. I'm just joking, by the way. I know Sam's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. I would click back into the main
Just the main
window.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want
Otherwise,
to
I start hitting twos on
hotkey.
here. Yeah. Into
Yep.
chat. So, anything you want to say about that match we just had that we didn't already say?
No, Four Color Miracles is a terrible mana base, and without Sensei's Divining Top, that deck is much less consistent. Icing Coatl and Astrolabe are obviously good cards, but not having card selection or like having a limited number of cantrips that actually give you card selection is a huge downside in your Terminus deck.
Yep.
So I'm not sure exactly what that deck is supposed to look like, but the last time I spoke with people about it, we were discussing a list without Terminus and just playing more of a Bant mid-range deck with like Coatl, Uro, and Planeswalkers and Oko, as opposed to the more classic Terminus list.
Gotcha. Yeah, as we said, Clean to Dust was the MVP in that game, at least.
Yeah, it was really impressive.
So when was the last time you streamed?
Stream Magic.
Yeah.
Last October, maybe I did a one-off random stream. It's the one that Matt Sperling made the video using.
Oh yeah, the your Legacy 5.0 with Ren 6.
Yeah, the Four Color Delver list. Yeah, that was before. That was before switching over to rug.
Oh, okay, I see. It
It was
wasn't.
like a
It was not 3 colors. It was 4.
yeah, yeah. It was like a couple weeks before I threw together rug.
Hmm.
This hand is fine.
Yep.
I would keep this. We're playing Delver turn 1.
Off the underground sea.
I. It's awkward because we may want to brainstorm turn 2 to hit a land drop.
Hmm.
So we can go Delver. Get Underground Sea in case we have to force a will turn 1. The considerations here are getting Volcanic Island so that we can brainstorm into Underground Sea and Thoughtseize, or if next turn we just want to cast Thoughtseize and then save the brainstorm. Because we may pitch brainstorm to force a will, I like just getting the Underground Sea to have access to a turn 2 play.
Hmm.
I guess the other option is Thoughtseizing, but if this is like a Chalice of the Void deck, just
You're still
getting
fine.
just getting a Delver into play and then like playing a Young Pyromancer and throwing Thoughtseizes into Chalices is fine. Like this is a hand where we wouldn't actually force a will a Chalice of the Void. Okay. Sure. This is fine. They probably take Brainstorm here. They could have taken Force of Will, but they likely have more interaction. So
Hmm.
nope, don't reveal that. And then just Thoughtseize them.
Oh, am I already at the?
You're in combat.
Oh, I must have pressed
Yeah.
2. That's what happened.
So hit 5.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah. Yeah. The hitting 5 is just a precaution in case you did hit F2. Force, true name. All right, take the true name.
Hmm.
And yeah. Can you pop out their hand? It's the
Yep.
upper left-hand corner under their name. Yep. All right. So this is going to be some sort of Euro pile, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, so they played Misty. And we're just hoping for a land here.
Yep. We did get the land, but not the one we, not the one we wanted.
I guess I should have been more specific.
I know.
I would Thoughtseize here just in case they drew Icefang Quaddle.
Hmm.
Also, this clears the way for an Oko if they drew it. Fatal Push.
That's interesting.
Fatal Push is fine. And then we're just going to take a Force of Will, play the Underground Sea.
Hmm.
And then depending on what happens, we'll play Young Pyromancer or we'll see. Okay. Preordain is a great draw. Wasteland, bottom both of those.
Yeah. Let's hope to get a mana producing land here.
Do
we brainstorm now?
I would sit on it for a turn.
It's because we're not seeing any pressure.
Yeah. Also, if we draw like a volcanic island, playing Young Pyromancer with the ability to brainstorm is nice.
Yep.
Okay. So our opponent is just trucking their way up to hardcast Force of Will. They may have removal. Okay, now we brainstorm.
This is hilarious.
Okay.
So I think we can play the Gurmag this turn.
Put
both of these red cards back.
No, put Brazen Borrower on top.
Oh.
Or actually, hold on. So this is actually a point where we want to slow down a bit. We can hide Brazen Borrower as a threat um, because it's castable,
Hmm.
but that sets us up to lose to a line like Thoughtseize plus Oko. So I think we do want to put both red cards back, but that is like that's the intuitive play. But
Yeah,
I
there's that
do kind of want to
consideration.
hide the Brazen Borrower.
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter which way we stack them. I would play the Underground Sea
Yeah, and then just
and then tap out. Yeah, uh, tap the other Underground Sea. Yeah, there's no reason to bluff anything, and leave. Let's see,
oh, we should get rid of,
Preordain.
yeah, preordain
Yeah,
and
I would get rid of both Brainstorms. I would leave Thoughtseize, Preordain in the yard.
okay. What's the rationale for that? It's just preordain is better when you don't have fetch lands, right?
We don't have a fetch land. Like our card count is getting fairly low here, so the Brainstorm is losing value. So the Preordain is a little higher reward.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure we're going to cast Brazen Borrower on their instep. We'll see what happens. My concern here is that they found a Jace to slam with Force Will backup, which it looks like they did. So, Force Pitch Force, and hope they don't have.
A veil or
Okay,
okay, that's
sick. Okay,
I'm really, really hoping that they
So-
have just Abrupt Decay in hand or something.
so yeah, just hit 2 here and attack, and then we're gonna cast
Oh,
Brazen
jeez.
Borrower on their instep.
Okay.
No.
Oh, that's fine.
This is fine. This is
Okay, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I pressed 2.
It's fine. Yeah, you don't want to hit 2 here because what that'll do is pass through their instep. Okay. Before we go to sideboarding, never mind, it's fine.
Oh, jeez.
I'll show you during the next game. It's just a thing that'll save some time when tapping a bunch of the same land. But here, Bug Pile, we're going to board in all of our blasts. We're going to board in the Painful Truths, the Cling to Dust, and the Flusterstorm. We're basically doing the same boarding plan as last time.
We're gonna put in the Sanctuary,
Cut the Wastelands,
cut the Wastelands.
and cut a Lightning Bolt.
Probably a Fatal Push, right?
Yeah, cut Fatal Push. And then I think Brazen Bar was the last cut. But hold on. So Force of Will is kind of bad against these grindy decks, but they're bug control, so we can assume Leovold / Euro / Oko, so we have to keep in forces. I like shaving 1 days on the draw. Do we want to shave the second days or the flash threat? I think we shave another days. I think we want to stay threat high in this matchup.
So we're liking this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned W just for auto tapping the first mana option of a land. Is that what it was?
When you have like 3 Underground Seas and you want to like cast a Brazen Borrower, you can right click and there's an option. Yeah, you keep this. There's an option to tap all of the lands for the same color of mana. So here, I think we just slam Delver on 1.
Yep.
I think we're fine if it gets Fatal Pushed. And the other consideration is just to play Delver on 2 with Flusterstorm up. But I'm not sure I necessarily like playing that passive.
Oh, you mean Ponder turn
Like
1?
getting threat on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ponder here. Like our hand is set up to do enough.
Yeah,
we don't need to.
We have what we need.
Ponder.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Very
Brainstorm
very good.
is good. I would just play a land and pass
Interesting.
or attack, of course.
Yeah.
We don't really need to look for anything here. and we don't need to cantrip. We just want to hold up Flusterstorm. They may Fatal Push or something, and we can fluster that if necessary. So we're just going to leave
Yeah.
options available.
Yeah, then we'll
I don't
have
even.
Arcanist and then leave up some answers too.
Yep. So we're just going to play our land and attack. Playing.
Yeah, I
I
think
would.
we
Yeah, play Underground Sea. That's fine.
let's attack first.
Yep. I was thinking about a line where we have to brainstorm into like a Red Blast, but if we play Arcanist, we can't do that. So here we may get Assassin's Trophy, Abrupt Decay. Looks like a decay, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's fine. So now
And
we're
I
gonna
would just
play the Arcanist.
you're in. Yep, you're in the end step though, or
Oh,
in combat step.
Yeah. I guess a little premature here. Okay.
Yeah, it's awkward because you build up muscle memory for where your stops are.
Mm-hmm.
So you stop thinking about you stop really looking at the indicator and you just kind of do things naturally. I would force pitch Ponder here, I think. Yeah. And then they're going to Veil of Summer and then we're going to Flusterstorm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to make sure I get this right. So I wait till
hit okay.
Hit okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus, I hate this so much.
Now
It's been forever since I've done this, so I'm not even sure I can guide you through it properly. But you fluster targeting their fluster.
You mean this copy right there, or it doesn't matter which copy. This one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then you hit OK.
Mm-hmm.
And then you click on
Like-
their copy of Fluster.
Like this one here.
Yeah. Click on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you click on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you click on the original again. Don't click on that. That's your own copy of Fluster.
Oh, so click on this one again.
Yes.
Got it. It didn't. Nothing happened. So
here. So that's here. Slow down for a second. Mm-hmm. So that fluster is targeting the first one. Now hover over the one that's green. It's a little to the right. So that's targeting that first one as well. So click on their copy of Fluster, the first one. So go to the left
one here.
Yeah, click on that.
I am so confused. Yeah, well, it's now just resolving, I think.
Yeah, this is where we hope that we did this right.
We are back and we are reviewing the Legacy League because we made some mistakes, and we're going to be reviewing the replays as opposed to the recordings, which have been permanently lost in time for the archives. So last we had this recording on, we basically just had a line in which the opponent played Flusterstorm. I don't remember what it was, Flusterstorming what, but then we Flusterstormed back, and now we are on the subsequent turn, untapping with Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Yeah, we made plays this game that allowed us to leave up Flusterstorm, and our opponent abrupticated Delver, and then we played Dreadhorde, and they tried to play a tree named Nemesis. We force willed, and then they Flusterstormed, and we had to go through the Moto rite of passage of correctly Flusterstorming and opposing Flusterstorm. And here we are in a pretty good spot. So, yeah.
Yeah, so how does one advance this replay? So
the middle one, if you click that, it goes through every priority pass, and it's just the safest option to use. Right, so here we are. We have a bunch of cantrips and a Dreadhorde. I want to say we elected to cast Ponder here, but my memory's a bit fuzzy.
Sure. Let's just manually click through it. Okay.
Yep.
And if I click this again, what happens? Oh, it actually shows every...
Yeah, this option shows you every like priority pass. And
so
here
it looks
we
like
shuffled
we
that
shuffled.
ponder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason we did that is we wanted to preserve this fetch land for the brainstorm, and Delver Days wasn't really that great. And here we kind of just hit the nuts brainstorm. I believe we spent a little time deliberating, but ultimately it didn't really matter how we stacked it since we were just going to draw into the Gurmag and cast it again. We elected to put back 2 cantrips, just keeping Forceful Blue card in Gurmag and opting to play it here. And I don't think we use Mystic Sanctuary here now.
No, we just tapped out. Wanted to hold up the Force of Will, obviously.
Yeah, which now that I think about it, I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't have used Mystic Sanctuary to just redraw the Ponder. Say something happens and our opponent maybe casts an Inquisition or does make some line where we have to force pitch Ponder. Like say they play Dead of Winter, right, and then follow up with Abrupt Decay after the Force of Will. We'd be out of resources, so maybe we should have just gotten Mystic Sanctuary and put the Ponder on top there. It's always nice to rewatch these games and catch the things that you missed in real time.
Yeah, it was the heat of the moment, and I was getting a little, not full panicky, but a little bit, just because we were a little bit down on the clock, even though we had won game 1. It's Magic Online obviously is not one of these things where the time expires and then you just see who has the most game wins, that kind of thing.
Right. So looks like I think our opponent plays another True Name here. Yeah.
And then we just decide to force it.
Yeah, we force, and I remember making a comment about, if they have Veil of Summer, they have it, but our opponent just didn't have anything. And
can I actually use spacebar to go instead of clicking?
I have no idea, honestly. I'm gonna tried that.
Yeah, it looks like it actually works. Okay, it's a little bit easier on my hands to hit spacebar, so I will do that.
Yeah. So here we attack. We use our Dread Horde and kind of get the Nutso Ponder. Pretty much everything we wanted. Pyroblast to stop an Oko, more threats to follow up if they do anything, and we just get to kind of run them over from here, I think.
Yeah, Pyroblast is nice. I mean, you can just use it just to get an elemental token with no real targets. And what did they do here?
I think they played a Jace here.
Ah, yes. So. And naturally we... Oh, okay, and then that was the concession. So that concludes our match number 3 versus Bug Control. I think we did draw above average, but I think we also tried to play fairly tight, with the exception of perhaps that Mystic Sanctuary play, would you say?
Yeah, I actually think we drew about average for our deck. I think what it was is that our opponent drew below average. They didn't really cast spells that game. Like there was only the Abrupt Decay, Flusterstorm, and 2 True Names. They conceded the game with 2 cards in hand. I'm inclined to believe those were lands, and they only single spelled for most of the game. So I feel like if they had drawn slightly better, it would have been a bit more of a competitive game, but we just kind of got to play solitaire as they floundered.
Yeah, they didn't have any cantrip action in this game too, and I recall that we hit them with, was it 2 Thoughtseizes in a row, or I think we just top decked the Thoughtseize at some point in the game, and I think maybe it was turn 2 or 3, and that just took them out of it because we took the first True Name, and that was just sort of there's really not much they could do to even stabilize defensively there.
I think that may have been game one where we there was either game one of this match or the next match, or one of the games of the next match where
it was definitely this match. This is the only match that we ever saw true name nemesis from the opponent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess my memory was just not 100% there, but that's what happened there. And then let's go on to match number 4 of our league. All right, we're going to do the same method, right?
Yep.
I believe this is 4-color miracles. Well, we knew after the fact, but at the time we didn't know.
Yeah, and I believe we kept this hand. It's not the best hand, but it has, has interaction for combo, interaction for creature decks. It has a cantrip to hit land drops, so it's an okay hand.
Mm-hmm. So they played Ponder, pretty standard opening.
Yeah, we elect to Thoughtseize on turn 1 in case there's some sort of combo deck.
Right, just figure out what they're on. Oh, geez.
Right.
I should have not spaced that quickly, but...
It's fine. You can pop out their hand.
Right.
So their hand was pretty stacked. It was Plow, Ice Fang, Astrolabe, Jace, and Oko. We take the Oko because it's the hardest card to beat, which I still think is correct. In the long run, we ended up losing to the Jace, but I think that was more a matter of we got a little constrained on mana. We'll discuss that when we get to it, but yeah.
Do you
Oko,
think the decision would have been any different, Lawrence, had we actually had a Volcanic Island in our opener, or fetch for Volcanic Island somehow?
I don't think so. Like, they have Oko, they have Ice Fang, Plow, so 2 removal spells plus Oko makes it pretty hard to combat the card. Whereas like Jace, it's a little easier to lightning bolt down a Jace, but Oko's kind of just miserable to fight through. So I think it's pretty clearly us taking Oko, and I don't think there's really a justifiable argument for taking Ice Fanger's Plow. Their hand is just really powerful.
Gotcha.
So they elect to play Ice Fang on their main phase, which is a nice play. They're putting us in a spot where if we want to cast Daze, we get thrown back into the Stone Age.
Yeah.
So I like that play a lot from them.
Yeah, this is pretty much a no-brainer preordain. We need to find the second land.
Yeah, and we end up whiffing, which is pretty terrible here. Like, Delver stacks up pretty well against these control decks, but you have to be able to keep like a constant pressure on them. If you give them too many turns of just nothing, they just get to run free, and they just destroy you. So not hitting a land drop there is pretty bad for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like you need a ton of lands, but you want to have 2 or 3. I think I remember in the previous match, or maybe the first 4-color Miracles match, there was a sequence of events where we didn't play a land every turn, and it's still okay. We won that game, but we needed to. I don't know how to describe it. Like, yeah, and I understand what you're saying. Like, you don't need to necessarily make land drops every turn for the first couple of turns as you would if you're playing a hard control deck, but you sort of have to get to that 3 or 4 lands threshold.
Yeah, you want to hit the first 2 land drops pretty religiously, and then you can kind of stall out there as long as you have the ability to make plays that progress your board. So usually the sweet spot is like first 2 land drops in the first couple turns. If you can make the 3rd land drop on the 3rd turn, that's great. If not, you want to hit it by the fourth turn usually, and then after that, it's pretty smooth sailing until at some point you'll hit your fourth land drop. It's not as important, but the first three are really where you kind of live and die in the game. So, this hand, this hand would have been a bit better if we were playing against like a combo deck. Just sitting here with a bunch of forces would have given us more time to stall or kind of miss land drops or whatever. But against Miracles, this is just the worst case scenario. Can't play any threats. Our hand has a bunch of lightning bolts that don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. At this point, we're really behind.
Yeah. So we draw our land, and I think here we decide that on our opponent's end step, we're going to lightning bolt their Ice Fang Quaddle.
Mm-hmm. Just set up for the Angler, right? Subsequent.
Right. Yeah. Set up for Angler, which we know is going to get plowed, but we have to get something down. And they draw another Oka, which is like the worst case scenario for us because we know they have the Jace.
Yeah, we force pitching force.
Which maybe we were supposed to just let Oko resolve and double bolt it. Which we didn't really think about at the time. But arguably we could do the same with Jace. So I think Force of Willing there is fine. Regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And then
yeah, we go for that.
There's the fetch crack, and then
we didn't end Stead Bolt. We just sort of, because we had a Force of Will in the graveyard, so we could play the Angler anyways.
Right, and we wanted to preserve all of our bolts to be able to fight through a Jace. So we play the Angler into the plow we know about, mostly to be able to protect our Dread Horde and get that going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. At this point, the opponent doesn't need to plow. They just basically need to only plow if we answer their Ice Fang Quaddle, obviously, right?
Right. And now we're hitting a point where our issues with mana are coming through. I think we tanked on this for a while. The options here were plow or bolt the Ice Fang, get our Gurmag plowed, and then they play Jace, and then they can plus Jace, and we have to untap and bolt Jace, or we can just leave up 2 mana to be able to bolt or Brazen Borrower Jace, with the assumption that our opponent is going to play Jace and then plus it. So I think we opted to pass here just because our red mana is limited, and we knew that we'd need to potentially access red mana twice within the next turn cycle. So leaving up the option to bolt and then on their turn and then untap and bolt seemed better than trying to push damage through that we know wasn't going to happen.
Right. I guess the worst possible play would have been to attack with the Angler, right? Because they will for sure trade with the Angler, and then there's really no good follow-up play that you can make at sorcery speed, because tapping out for the Arcanist then invites the plow. I guess the really worst play would be you don't attack with the Angler and you just cast the Arcanist. That would be literally the worst play, right?
Yeah. What it is here is we really want to set up a game state where they plow the Gurmag, because if we're winning this game, it's the way we win is going to involve Dreadhorde Arcanist doing something, right? And we're in this spot where we drew the second Brazen Borrower that we bottomed earlier on in the game with the Preordain, which that random fetch crack actually brought this up. But here, our play is constrained by the fact that we didn't draw land. If we had drawn a fetch land, I think our play would have been just lightning bolt the Ice Fang, attack, get Gurmag plowed, and then potentially follow up with the Dreadhorde Arcanist, and then like let our opponent play the Jace, and then they probably bounce the Dreadhorde, or they can plus or whatever, but we have the bolts to clear it out. So our play of just past the turn was forced by our constrained mana base.
Right. Oh, I guess. Yeah. I guess we tapped the volcanic, but it was a pump fake.
Yeah, we pump fake the bolt, which does affect our opponent's play next turn, but I think in the spot they make that play 100% of the time, where they play Jason plus on themselves.
Right. At this point,
Yeah.
I think we put, two wastelands back and just, let's see what we did.
Yeah,
here.
and then this ate the first bolt, and then got a plow out of them. I think what ended up happening is we meant to bolt on their instep, but we're F2'd and ended up back in our turn. So we wanted to bolt and set up the plow turn earlier.
So
So
sorry, I was also wanting to ask you, from the perspective of the opponent, what was the case for them not playing the Jace last turn?
we had 2 mana up. I don't think they had like a force to protect the Jace, and I think they play the Jace the next turn on 6 mana, so I think they were playing around Spell Pierce.
Okay.
Like, they figured we had a bolt from us tapping our Volk for red, and then they just don't play their Jace. So they also could potentially have like Dovin's Veto or something in their deck. So they could be trying to get to like 6 mana so that they can play Jace with Dovin's Veto to protect it in some regard.
Okay. So we see that what happened, what was supposed to happen, happened. And then we just passed.
And then here, I think we ended up making the wrong play. I do think we are supposed to draw the first Wasteland because we need the mana, but we opt to
shuffle. Right?
Brazen. Well, no, we opt to just bounce Jace with Brazen Borrower in their upkeep, and I think we were supposed to just double bolt the Jace. The Brazen Borrower line isn't that good when we don't have a board presence, so like we're making a tempo play, but we aren't able to capitalize on the tempo.
Right.
So in hindsight, the play should have just been play Wasteland, which the reason we play the Wasteland is one part that it can cut off Mystic Sanctuary by wastelanding their volcanic island if they try to fetch and get a spell back. But also it gives us the option to use Petty Theft if necessary, and we should have just double bolted the Jace here and just tried to clear the Jace that way. And I think what ends up happening is like they just get to eventually run wild with Jace.
Yeah, but we wanted the second Wasteland, correct? Or we always planned to shuffle it away?
Yeah, I think we decided to keep the second Wasteland.
Because we were sort of in on this line. And
yeah, we were in on this line of trying to like slowly make land drops while just basically getting into this holding pattern where they play Jace plus Jace and we bounce, so we could eventually get Dreadhorde down. But I just don't think that's a winning line. So at the time, should have probably seen that.
Right.
So it's another turn of should have just double bolted, and we bounce the thing again, and they force, which was interesting. I can't remember if we double bolt now. No, I'm not sure why we didn't double bolt there.
So the opponent just brainstormed with Jace. I guess there was no point in playing around 2 bolts at that time. They must have thought that if we had not done that, then it's a combination of, if they would have done that, we would have done that by now. Plus, the opponent just needs to see more cards, right?
Yeah, I think the idea was we were trying to get Brazen Borrower down, but I think we definitely should have just double bolted the Jace and gone from there. Like here, we get the Brazen Borrower down, but this gives our opponent a window to use Mystic Sanctuary. So I think these last few turns just weren't that great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember my confusion here because they had the chance to get a Sanctuary and get back Plow, but they play an Ice Fang, which I think they ended up having another Plow in hand. So it makes sense for them to just wait on the Sanctuary.
Right.
But I don't... Oh, they knew the cards on top, which is why they shuffled.
That makes sense, yeah.
So I think here
themselves, yeah.
Yeah. Or that turn they brainstormed, so they definitely wanted the shuffle effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think here we elect to trade off the Brazen Borrower and then double bolt and ponder, something of that regard.
Right. We ended up with the double bolt line, but it was just a few turns later.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could have gone quite badly for us.
I think we end up keeping this. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, we did that, but there was, I mean, at this point, you can't really shut off their Sanctuary.
Right. It was just constricting their mana by a little bit, but it wasn't really that impactful of a play. And
right
here we are in a spot where they can get back the Plow pretty free now. So I think we just opt to, just play out both of our creatures and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we conceded to just like removal here.
Did we concede? We lost game 1, right?
Yeah, we lost game 1. I remember we scooped game 1 for time, just because we were a few minutes down and these matches tend to drag on. And
right.
Yeah. Oh no, we found the Young Pyromancer on the Ponder.
Yeah.
So we were going to set up a line where we got to like play Young Pyromancer with Force of Negation and potentially Daze, and then they had the force back to be able to push a counterbalance through, and that's where we conceded for time.
Got it. And that explains why pressing the space key does nothing. All right. At this point we conceded. So then we move on to game 2. How do we show the sideboarding strategy?
Pull up the game 2 replay and then right click on the gray area of the board and then view sideboard.
Yeah.
So our sideboarding was pretty much the same as the other matches against Control that we played. We cut all of our wastelands. We shaved a lightning bolt. And what else did we do? We boarded in 3 Pyroblasts, Flusterstorm, Cling to Dust, Mystic Sanctuary, and the 2 Painful Truths. And it looks like we cut Bolt, 4 Wastelands, and the 2 Brazen Borrowers. My logic for cutting Borrowers, like even though it's a flash threat, it's still kind of clunky, and Petty Theft isn't really that stellar. It's not like Vendilion Click, where having the instant speed duress effect is really just great against these control decks. So
yeah, there's almost nothing that you want a Petty Theft on for the opponent's deck, essentially.
Right. So it's just a 3 mana, 3/1 flash threat, which we have other cards that are, come at a better rate than that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what happens here. We definitely keep that. And I don't know if there was any decision around the turn 1 play. I think there was pretty much a no-brainer, Thoughtseize.
Yeah,
Oh,
we saw
sure.
counterbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah, what it was is there is some thought to maybe holding the Thoughtseize, but we saw counterbalance and we don't have a hand with a threat, so we know that turn 2 we're going to be cantripping to find a creature to play. So their hand had double counterbalance, Ice Fang, Ponder, Tundra, and like the Plow. So it was a pretty good hand. So we just set ourselves up to not have to fight through double counterbalance and go from there.
Right.
And,
That was
yeah.
my mistake. I do recall now. They had 2 counterbalances.
Yeah, no worries. So they elect to ponder cracking their fetch land to play around the wastelands that we boarded out, which was nice. And then here we have a brainstorm that's kind of mediocre, but we have our 3 land drops. That we set ourselves up to have 3 land drops for Painful Truths, and I think we put away the other lightning bolt here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we ponder just again to find a threat or something.
I believe we shuffled this.
Yeah. We just needed to get a creature down. We already had enough permission. And we know they have... What is it? We know they have Plow and Ice Fang, but they have like nothing else outside of the counterbalance.
Sure.
So I think we're able to set up a spot where we just play Dreadhorde and protect it, but we'll see if my memory is correct.
Your memory's better than mine. I even reviewed these today.
Let's see. So, yeah, we just slammed Dreadhorde. And our opponent respected Daze game 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have to worry about Dreadhorde getting plowed here. And this next turn is interesting because they plow and we force of will.
Yep.
And I think we force of negation to exile it. And we force pitch force because I assumed that they would jam counterbalance here, which they ultimately did. So we were able to set up a turn where our opponent just played into everything we wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, they played Ice Fang Coatl. So they didn't play the counterbalance, but we expected them to play a 2-drop.
Right.
And yeah. Everything lined
the
up
opponent
perfectly.
had to play that, right? There was basically no reason not to, even if we had a Daze.
Yeah, they had to. And then here we draw a Young Pyromancer, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, we're able to Thoughtseize the other counterbalance and really get to work.
Yeah, I don't think anything changes. Was there a case to be made for taking? No, Snapcaster. I mean, it was just a ponder in the graveyard there. Terminus is essentially a dead card without Brainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we go ahead and take the counterbalance because it's partially the most annoying card to play against in terms of like Moto interface, but also it's their way of potentially shutting off Dreadhorde. So I think they drew Mystic Sanctuary and were able to put a ponder on top, play Ice Fang Coatl, and
Get the ponder
then
right
ponder,
away.
which is the best case for them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think they were supposed to either just play Ice Fang to draw a card and try and hit a land, or Snapcaster Ponder, which isn't the best scenario for them.
Mm-hmm.
And here we draw a Ponder, which is like one of the best draws there for us. This isn't a good stack, so we just shuffle this.
That's a good card. We play the...
Yep. Yeah, we ripped the other Ponder off the top, which was nice, and another pile of cards we didn't want.
Right. And we hit a card that was actually good.
Yeah, and I think we tank here Because I think what was the line? It may have been I think it was throw the Dreadhorde away. Or no, it was brainstorm to maybe find a lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what we ended up doing. Because like if we hit and are able to clear the Ice Fang, it's pretty insane for us. And we have 3 bolts and 3 red blasts there. And then worst case scenario, we just follow up with a Thoughtseize post combat, which strips our opponent of like the Snapcaster Mage. So I think here we end up getting to do it all, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we get to free attack with the Young Pyromancer because we know our opponent has to trade with the Dreadhorde.
That's right.
If they actually want to have like a reasonable shot at winning this game.
Yeah, and we just hit a pretty good brainstorm there.
I think
let's see what
I think we ended up tanking on this for a while.
Interesting.
Because there are a few options. Yeah. I still think this is the best route. The Painful Truths and the Dreadhorde are fairly synonymous, and Young Pyromancer provides enough of a clock. So we just want excuse me. We just want to use the Thoughtseize to stifle their ability to really progress. And then we have Mystic Sanctuary that we can utilize. So we let them trade with the Dreadhorde. We push a little bit of damage, and I think we post combat Thoughtseize. And I think we also, we Thoughtseize here because we're going to be constrained on black mana, I think, the next turn. And then we leave the option to Mystic Sanctuary. And our opponent has Pyroblast, Snapcaster, Terminus, so take the Snapcaster, don't let them ponder to get any sort of card filtering, and Pyroblast isn't a relevant card.
Now we have Mystic Sanctuary activated, so see what they do.
They do nothing, and I think we buy back the Thoughtseize here so that we can set up Thoughtseize into Painful Truths.
Right, just make sure you clear the ground for that. And that was good and only possible, really, to get max value if we have 2 Underground Seas, which we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Thoughtseize happens. This also clears the way for like an Icewing Coatl, lets us know if we get to attack with Pyromancer. They have 2 Pyroblasts and a Terminus. Pretty much just game over.
Yeah.
We get to draw 3 and do everything we want, really.
Yeah, those are just blanks in their hand, obviously.
Yeah, and this is the awkward part about Pyroblast against Delver. Sometimes it connects with like a counter spell or a Delver of Secrets, and you're really happy. And other times it just rots in your hand as they just cast all the other cards that do things.
And conversely, that's how I feel sometimes about Pyroblast versus combo decks, right? Like TES, where, like, sure, maybe you board them in, but you really can only nail their cantrips. So it's not exactly the same, but it's like these are cards that are very powerful, but they're very narrow. So you have to sort of figure out how to use them very wisely, you know?
Yeah, I like Pyroblast against Ant because they tend to play a longer game against Delver strategies, or even when you're playing Miracles, like they're playing a longer game, so hitting their cantrips and not letting them sculpt is really valuable. But TES cares much less about its cantrips and plays a lower number than Ant does. So, like, it's not uncommon that you'll see, like, Chrome Mox, Exile, Ponder, cast Brainstorm on, like, turn 1, and there go, most of the Pyroblast targets. So I usually don't board in Blast, or if I do, it may be, like, 1 if I have space, but it's not a card that I'm reaching for initially.
It's good to know.
Yeah, so here we cast our Painful Truths, and just completely, bury our opponent. They have to beat this young Pyromancer, and then we just
need to fade a Terminus, essentially, top deck Terminus.
Pretty much, yeah. And we attack with all here just so that we can win through like an Icewing Coatl, and if they like drew a Brainstorm into Terminus, we had the Flusterstorm, so we were pretty happy there. And for game 3, I think we changed our boarding slightly.
Yeah, let's take
because
a look here.
We had 6 minutes on the clock, I believe.
Yeah, we had about 6 minutes and a half.
Yeah, so we cut the Cling to Dust for a Brazen Borrower, it looks like.
Yes.
Just because we wanted another threat in the deck. I think Cling to Dust has more utility here, but we just needed to be able to like supply a steady stream of threats, and couldn't rely as much on the grind them into the dirt game plan as we had before. So
definitely.
That's why that change was made.
All right, let's see what happens here. Okay, this was a keep for us.
Yeah. It's a keep. Turn one, we're likely preordaining for some sort of permission because we know our opponent has counterbalance in their deck, and if they just slam it on turn two, that could be a nightmare. But we drew Force of Negation, so we get to just lead on Delver, which is the best case scenario for us.
So you're saying had we not drawn that, had we just drawn something else, then we would have preordained to try and have some setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason it's the best case for us is like our opponent turn one played Tundra and Ponder shuffled, so that's a huge indicator that they were low on. They didn't have lands, which that puts us in a spot where we want to just start pressuring them and put them under duress while they have to spend their cantrips trying to staple together a functioning mana base. So drawing the Force of Negation was just perfect, and they just play an Ice Fang, not a big deal. Delver flips, we get to attack into it.
Yeah, at this point, this is where you reminded me that the Coatl does not have Death Touch. Well, I mean, it's obvious because of MO, but it was something that I just missed. So it was just a free attack.
Yeah, it's easy to think of it as just a Baleful Strix. And here we got into a discussion about not doing anything. I think a lot of people have learned kind of how to operate casting cantrips, but don't really know when to not cast them. And we're in this position where we have a threat. We have a Painful Truths that's going to gas us up. And we have double force. So we're like protected against a counterbalance. We're protected against an Oko. And, we aren't looking for anything. Like the best thing this Preordained can find is exactly another blue card and like maybe another threat or something. Maybe Thoughtseiz's blue card. Right. We don't need to do that yet. We have the Painful Truths for just raw card advantage. So we're just better left off. Just leaving our hand as is, forcing our opponent to make a play, and then winning a counter war most likely, and then untapping and casting Painful Truth. So
I think this was a really instructive turn for me personally, just because I think the autopilot in me would have just cast a Preordain, but I understand your point being completely valid in that in this case the best Preordain is the one that you don't cast, and the most you can do is just essentially replace itself as a blue card when in fact you don't need anything else, right? I'm sorry, I'm just sort of repeating what you said, but I'm just trying to internalize it, because I think that's part of becoming a better Delver pilot, is really understanding these types of situations. Or not Delver pilot, but just Magic pilot.
Right. And the other thing is, someone may ask, like, well, if we cast Preordain and find another Preordain, what's wrong with that? It's more just about the density of the spells in our deck. So we expect these games to go on long, so there's a lot of value. Like our cantrips just increase in value as the game goes on. So like this turn 2 Preordain, kind of whatever, but when it's like turn 10 and both us and our opponent are top decking and we're the ones drawing cantrips while they, had to burn all their ponders and everything in the first few turns looking for lands, we're just favored in that position. So there is like a long-term effect on casting Preordain. And the other thing is like, what blue cards do we have in our deck? They're cantrips. There's more counter magic. And then there's threats like Delver and Brazen Borrower. And we want our threats because we assume this Delver is going to die at some point. We want our other cantrips for the late game. And we want to keep our counterspell density very high for fights down the road. So not only is there like not a reason to cast the Preordain because it being a blue card is good, there's multiple reasons why casting it is actively detrimental to our long-term plan.
Yeah, makes sense.
So and what happens here? Okay, they play Astrolabe.
Mm-hmm.
Here we just attack with the Delver, and I think we cast Painful Truths, or
I think
we cast
don't
Painful
attack
Truths
yet.
first.
That's right.
Yeah. Which is kind of awkward because we're casting a draw 3 when we're on the draw, but we have to, how we proceed with this Delver helps us figure out what we're going to do. And we drew the best Painful Truths possible. Thoughtseize double Delver, and then we still have all of our counter magic.
Is this when we just
you know-
decide to attack in order to trade so that we can just keep playing cards?
Right. We attack here because if our opponent wants to actually trade with this Delver, they have to crack their fetch land. If I remember correctly, they cast a Brainstorm, so they actually do get value out of the fetch land here. But if they didn't have the Brainstorm, it would have just been incinerating the fetch land for the sake of doing so.
Right.
And
And
then
given
our
the
game
texture
plan
of our
for-
hand, it's like that's a trade we're obviously willing to make, right?
Right. And then the next turn, being able to Thoughtseize them and then play double Delver and still just have double counter magic is just the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So we trade off our Delver, we pitch a land, which is, it's fine. It's unfortunate because we can't get back or it's the fetch land we want to use for
Mystic Sanctuary.
Mystic Sanctuary, but it's like not the biggest deal. And at this point we're running low on clock, so we kind of just needed to make
Yeah.
plays and,
Try to-
maybe there's a world where we hold the Painful Truths for another turn, but in that position, we're just casting it. We're throwing our Delver into the abyss, and then
Right.
we're following up. So, yeah, we force pitch Preordain here.
Mm-hmm. There's going back to that earlier discussion. There's nothing else that we really need at this point. Like everything that we have to close out the game is in the hand already.
Right, and if we draw a fetch land, we're getting back Painful Truth, so we don't necessarily need Preordain. So like we can't necessarily flood. Any cantrip is good, any threat is good. So we're just at the point where we still kind of have our cake, and we just need our opponent to die. So
Yeah, we're eating the cake, and this is pretty standard. We figure out if the shields are down. I think we can just quickly look at this. I went over it pretty quickly. So we took the ferry, and there was a swords and a terminus. There really was no case to take anything else, right? It's just totally
Right.
fine.
our game plan's pretty reliant on counter magic here. And if we could like take the swords, but they can just Mystic Sanctuary it back. So it's just take the Teferi, keep all of our counter spells live. We can figure out a game plan for Terminus down the road, and we know that one of our Delvers will get plowed, and that's totally fine.
Right. Yeah. Opponent still respects the days. Okay, and that was definitely something to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking back on this match, it's not like the opponent drew terribly badly. It's just
No. I think here, what is it? Our Delver flips off of something.
let's see what it is.
They plow. I think it was maybe another. Oh, it was Flusterstorm. That's what it was.
That's right.
So
Oh yeah, I think was
Where's-
there some kind of discussion as to at least I asked the question, was it worth saving that Delver? And I think the answer was no.
yeah, we could have brainstormed into Flusterstorm and cast it, but the issue is they had Terminus in hand, so we just had to let that go.
Right.
And seeing an extra card deeper on our brainstorm is just way more important here, because finding something like any follow-up thread or another Thoughtseize is pretty good value. So I think we do end up casting Brainstorm here.
and we find another painful truths. So we just,
Which is
put that on top. Yep. We just want to keep up this Flusterstorm so that they don't just hardcast Terminus. And at this point, I was surprised that they didn't crack their Flooded Strand to buy back.
like a cantrip or something. Or swords.
Yeah, the Brainstorm. Swords or Brainstorm. Probably Brainstorm is what I would have bought back. But I think here we do another main phase 1 Painful Truths.
Why do you think they didn't do that? Was it just a miss, or were there other reasons?
I'm not quite sure.
I guess they felt that there wasn't that much pressure with just our one Delver on board, and they were at 13 life.
Yeah, I think so. But the issue is Mystic Sanctuary just changes the dynamic of things. So like they see a fetch land, and you have to just start trying to make some forward progress in the game, because you know that we can just buy back Painful Truths and cast it again. So our opponent opts to take a passive line, which I think really is detrimental for them there.
I think they also don't know that we sided out Wastelands. Had we found a Wasteland and Wasteland the Tundra, their Sanctuary would no longer be online. That's the other thing too.
Well, they could have cracked the Flooded Strand at the end of our last turn, where we just had cast Brainstorm and put a land into play.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was pretty free to get Brainstorm back and at least be able to set up the Terminus and go from there. But maybe they were worried about something like, I don't know.
Like a Stifle? I guess it doesn't really make sense at this point in a game 3.
Maybe a Surgical Extraction. And I think here we put Brainstorm on top.
Right.
But maybe I think we were supposed to put like Force of Negation on top. But at that point we were running low on time. So it was just kind of just click any spell that does a thing and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think there technically the correct card is Force of Negation, just to get a hard counter.
Mm-hmm.
But
just protect the queen or insect, as it were.
Right, but this ends up working out. We cast our Painful Truths. I think we draw a Pyroblast. Yeah, and then it's just all in attack. Just have
a lot of stuff going on here. We don't have a hard counter, but we do have a hard counter, but yeah, it's not a Force of Will, but it's practically.
Yeah, we don't have a universal counter, so
that's
here
the
they
term I'm
finally
looking
make
for.
the play. Yeah, they finally make the play to get that Brainstorm back, but we've drawn
Red Blast.
We've drawn the Red Blast, so it's a turn too late. And 100% Red Blast that every time.
Yeah. I think there was a match earlier that we played in this league where I think I just autopiloted letting them resolve a Brainstorm during a critical turn when I could have Force of Willed it. So those are things that I absolutely have to get tighter in my toolbox. Is like there's no absolutes, like always let their cantrip resolve kind of thing. Obviously.
Right. Yeah, I've talked to Jarvis about this, and we've had conversations about how people are kind of hard conditioned to let cantrips resolve, which is pretty detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are those lines where you're supposed to Force of Will the Ponder, Force of Will the Brainstorm. But here we elect to play Dreadhorde Arcanist and Delver. We accept that we aren't beating a blind Terminus, which is a downside of us not putting the Force of Negation on top. But we have a Lightning Bolt. We know that we can win the game through Coatl the next turn. And, minor mistakes were made, but we didn't get punished there. But, if we had put Force of Negation on top, I don't think there's a way we lose the game. But by doing it this way, we gave ourselves the chance to. But here it didn't matter. Ice-Fang Coatl doesn't do anything. If they blind flip Terminus, we get to Brainstorm and Lightning Bolt and Flusterstorm the Terminus.
Right.
And, I think here, we just cast our Brainstorm. We find Thoughtseize, Lightning Bolt.
Right. We Thoughtseize first. No. We Thoughtseize first. Yeah. I was playing quickly and did not. Yeah, but thankfully that was rectified.
Yep. And there we go. That was the game.
Right. And we just buy back the lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really quite something how Dreadhorde can just make things snowball. But I think we could have had that game pretty comfortably in the bag, even without drawing the Dreadhorde Arcanist. Like, it was just the other things just sort of lined up, right?
Right. I do think we did want a second threat, just to close out the game before they could actually get any real traction. So Dreadhorde was the perfect draw, but any other threat would have probably been fine.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts in general about this matchup or this match that we had played?
Not too many. We played against like these grindy control decks 3 times, and every time we just did the same thing. We cut our wastelands, we upped our spell density. So as the game draws on, they're going to be drawing more lands because they're a 20, sometimes 21 land deck post board, and we are a 16 land deck. So it's much harder for us to flood, and like our average card is going to convert pretty easily. Even Daze in the late game works well with Mystic Sanctuary. So, we have a good engine going, and that's just how these games go. If we're able to keep forward momentum and have reasonable draw steps, we usually win. And this is a game where we saw the downside of like them having to use their cantrips early to just hit their land drops, and then they eventually started flooding out. And by the time they started flooding out, we had found our Pyroblast to answer, the brainstorm they're buying back, effectively time walking them. And we just got to, control the game from there.
Right. Let's move on to our 5th match of the league. I believe it was against Snoopy Magic.
Yeah. So I think this match was pretty elementary. This was another game where we had to talk about the cantrip because I mentioned the puzzle Duke posted in his article. That was a very similar hand to this. Force blue card. I think there were 2 cantrips though, or there may have been a lightning bolt. But here, the debate was, what's our turn 1 play? There's Underground Sea Ponder, but what are we looking for? We don't know what our opponent's on. We don't know if we need more threats. We don't know if we need more permission. We don't know. We have 3 lands. We're not looking for land. So like, if we cast Ponder and it's like 1 good spell, 2 lands, even if like, say it's Wasteland, Fetch Land, Lightning Bolt, probably a shuffle, right? But what if our opponent's on Infect? That's like a fine Ponder because the Lightning Bolt will clear out Noble Hierarch or something like that, and then the Wasteland can protect us from Nexus. So, if our opponent's a combo deck, when we cast a Ponder and we see Lightning Bolts and creatures, we get punished there. So we opt to not Ponder and just go Fetch Land Go. Protects us against Wasteland and lets us get more information before doing something.
The other thing I'll mention, and first of all, I agree with everything you just said. And after reviewing this, I do agree, like, the best Ponder here is the one that you don't cast on turn 1 in this case. It's also one of these autopilot things that you tend to just do because you're thinking about maximizing mana efficiency and just doing something. The other thing that I was just thinking about was when I initially played this through with you, or when we initially played, I thought maybe Ponder getting Daze would have been universally applicable, but it was also a tough sell because we had the Arcanist. So there's probably nothing that we really want to Daze on turn 1 unless it was maybe a Dark Ritual or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We just didn't want to cast Daze there. If our opponent is a combo deck and has a hand that is, Thoughtseize, Artifact Mana, go off, sure. Yeah. Excuse me, my throat is really dry. But yeah, if they happen to have that sort of hand, that happens. but we get so much more value out of just being able to play the Ponder later on in the game once we know what's going on. So land go it is.
Mm-hmm. We elect to.
And yeah, we lead on Flooded Strand. I don't think we really talked about which fetch line to lead on, but Flooded Strand is the correct one to lead on.
Oh, that's interesting. Just because it represents more decks like Miracles and such.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I honestly did not even consider that. I just thought they were like I just thought it was one thing to maybe debate. I'm not saying I'm debating with you, but it's one thing to think about Strand versus Bloodstained Mire, but Strand versus Tarn is just something I never thought about. I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit.
It's just a little bit of misdirection. It's pretty free. It's like people playing Wooded Foothills and Stifle Delver variants, where, now most of the time when you see Wooded Foothills, a lot of people have it on their radar that they just assume that you're playing a Stifle Delver deck. But, if you play Flooded Strand, there are so many Flooded Strand decks in the format that, that immediate recognition won't happen, whereas Wooded Foothills decks are either Stifle Rug Delver or like lands or some sort of loam strategy. So like it's not major, but like when I play Delver decks, I will play like a split of fetch lands, and it's usually consists of like 3 Flooded Strands and then maybe some Polluted Deltas and Scalding Tarns, but it's just usually arbitrary blue fetches with a distribution weighted towards Flooded Strand a little bit more than the other ones.
That's interesting. Okay, so at this point, the opponent has just gone Volcanic Island Go, and so we still don't know what they're on. They could be on a range of decks, and I believe we just elect to go with the Dreadhorde plan.
Yeah, it's the highest upside play. Here, if they stifle us, we don't care. We have 4 lands. If they bolt Dreadhorde, it's not the end of the world. If they daze, not the end of the world. We still don't know what they're on, so we're just going to use our mana this turn and reassess with Ponder the next turn. So I think they end up brainstorming in response here.
Right, which
made
we
us
were
both think that
we were a little puzzled on that, I think.
Yeah, we were thinking that maybe they are playing some sort of daze strategy, which again, if they daze here, if they brainstorm into daze here, that's totally fine.
That makes us put them on daze of some sort. Like maybe it's a blue-red Delver player that's very desperate to find a daze, or they already have a daze and they're trying to weigh their options.
Right. And they end up doing this play. So now we know there's some sort of combo deck. So we get rewarded for holding this Ponder as long as we did.
For sure.
And, Dreadhorde plus double Ponder on turn 3 is the best. And here we elect to not play Young Pyromancer.
That was an interesting
as a
way.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason for this was in case we have a turn where we cast a bunch of cantrips, we wanted to potentially find Thoughtseize, but we ended up finding double Force of Will, which was nice. So I think we just
get it all.
Yeah, we just take this line, we cast our double Ponder, we get double Force of Will going, and I think we play Pyromancer post combat.
Right. I think there were some considerations for them having Spell Pierce, but it wouldn't have mattered if we just played the Young Pyromancer.
I think on the second one, so here we assumed Sneak and Show, and I think this is where we started playing around Spell Pierce, and having that Brainstorm on top was a lot of value with the Dreadhorde Arcanist, so we opted to not play the Pyromancer because we didn't want to crack the fetch this turn.
What's kind of interesting now that I'm looking at it from a replay perspective is if we put ourselves in the shoes of our opponent, would there ever have been a case for them not playing the Lotus Petal, even though that helps them, play around Spell Pierce and such, just so that they don't give us that extra information? I understand that we have a C, which sort of telegraphs that we have a Thoughtseize, but it's not like we're ever gonna. It's not like Lotus Petal is ever going to be the highest value Thoughtseize target, anyways. You know?
Yeah, them playing the Lotus Petal was really detrimental for them because, like you said, it just gave us all of the information we needed. We may have taken a different line. We may have assumed that they were on some sort of Delver deck, or maybe even some sort of like blue-red control style deck, but they played Lotus Petal, which screamed sneak and show. So we just started making plays that stocked our hand up with counter magic because we found our second threat, and that's all we needed.
It's crazy. I mean, that Lotus Petal basically allowed us to get maximum value from all this.
That Lotus Petal changed the way this game played out. But yeah, here we force pitch Brazen Borrower. They force back. Mm-hmm. We cast Force Will again on the sneak attack.
Right. At this point, we're actually a little nervous because we don't have any cantrips and we're out of counters. And then we find another cantrip.
Well, we knew the Brainstorm was on top, and here we elect to Brainstorm before casting Young Pyromancer, just in case we have a turn of a bunch of cantrips and a Thoughtseize. And I can't remember if we main phase the Pyromancer. Yeah. Okay. So we elect to main phase Pyromancer here because we need to get a clock going. Mm-hmm. We can suspect they have another payoff spell, but we need to kill them before anything gets too hairy.
Yeah, I mean, they have 3 cards in hand, so it's got to be one show and tellable creature or sneak attackable creature plus 2 other things. So it's not it's not terrible for us. Okay, at this point we have another blue card, so it's a no-brainer. We don't want the
we
angler.
Just bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we attack here. And I don't think we played the second Dread Horde, mostly because we're back at a point where we can play around Spell Pierce again, and the second Dread Horde isn't doing too much.
Right.
And I believe we keep this here because it allows us to set up a turn. It allows us to set up lethal.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall if in real time, did we have a discussion? We did have a discussion around whether to play the Arcanist, but we just thought that respecting the Spell Pierce or playing around it at this point, being this far ahead, was the better play, right?
Right, because we have, we're attacking them for 4, we're putting them to 12, and then we had 6 power on board, and then we had the Brainstorm, which would put 7, the Lightning Bolt puts 8, and then Arcanist flashing back Lightning Bolt puts them dead. So we just play our land, pass, and
it didn't change the clock.
Brainstorm. Yeah, we plan to Brainstorm the next turn and go from there.
And this was a super interesting line. And
they cast Cunning Wish. We were talking about this. We weren't sure what they were going to get. The options were like Kozilek's Return. What I was considering is that maybe they were getting a Veil of Summer, and then they were going to go Veil of Summer,
protected
off of the
combo.
Lotus Petal. And then play Ancient Tomb to Show and Tell. And, all of these options, none of those options really changed our play. If they get a 3-drop spell and cast it, we still just force a will and then do the Brainstorm Bolt line. And then here, if they did Veil of Summer into Show and Tell, we can, if it's Emrakul, we can kill them through an Emrakul. We just don't crack our fetch land. Or actually, if we force a will and they force back, Veil of Summer, Show and Tell, Emrakul, we wouldn't force a will. And we could kill them through a fetch land or also just play Brazen Borrowed or block. And if they put Grizzlebrand into play, we could set up a lethal through a Grizzlebrand with Lightning Bolt hitting whatever creature Grizzlebrand blocks. So we just let this happen and see whatever they find. And I want to say it was Intuition.
I believe it was. Yeah, they chose intuition. And
which just isn't good enough here.
Mm-hmm. But that was a really good observation. Is just that we could, based on what we have, we could kill through a Griselbrand or an Emrakul on board. I thought we could only kill through an Emrakul, but you're right about Griselbrand as well.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we brainstorm.
And we elect not to bolt here, I believe.
Yeah, we don't want to bolt just yet because, again, we don't want to play into a Spell Pierce, but we will cast a Brainstorm into a Spell Pierce. This is mostly just to get a token, unless the card filtering. And I think we find the second bolt, so we just fire off the bolt and, you know, they're done.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. I think that this is the point where they...
Yeah,
oh, no, they didn't concede.
Bolts.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
now
we did.
Now it's over.
Kill them here, so.
So that was... yeah, them playing the Lotus Petal just changed the whole complexion of the game. I had not realized this until looking at this replay. And we can take a look at the game too and what we did in terms of sideboarding. What was interesting was that something that I don't normally do, but which you advocated for, was bringing in these surgical extractions. Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so the way Sneak and Show functions, it's very common that they'll have a turn that's kind of a pump fake, where they go off, they'll do a bit of fighting over their show and tell or whatever, and then they'll follow up the next turn again with a combo piece. And when you're playing like these blue counterspell decks, you often have enough counter magic to win the first war, but you need to be able to, like, you need to have good follow-up plays for the second war, whether that be, you know, more counter magic, discard spells, or in this case, surgical extraction. If they show and tell, you win the fight and you surgical it, that puts them on having exactly sneak attack. Or, you know, if they go for a sneak attack line, you can surgical that and then like show and tell you have Pyroblast and all of your other counter magic to fight over that card. So it just lets you decrease the density of relevant cards in their deck.
Yeah. And I think everything else is fairly straightforward. We're not really trying to grind here, so we just brought in all the Red Blasts and Flusterstorm, and it's pretty standard. We didn't cut any dazes. We wanted all the counters, right?
Mm-hmm. And Lightning Bolt's pretty bad against this deck, but we didn't have clean sideboarding, so we left in one as a way to maybe answer a Dreadhorde Arcanist, as you mentioned, if they had any, or what's the Magus with the Show and Tell card? I can't remember.
The Arcane Artisan. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just left in a Miser's Bolt as, you know, a random thing. But, you know, the other card I was considering was Mystic Sanctuary, because sometimes these games go on long enough for that card to be relevant. But on the draw, I'm fine leaving in a couple Lightning Bolts against these combo decks just as a way to shorten the clock. So the sporting plan was fine to me.
Yeah. And then we get to one of the more interesting situations of the whole league. And first of all, we do decide to keep this.
Yeah, this hand is stellar. It can't stop a turn one combo, but it does have, you know, it has disruption, it has pressure. You know, we have our two creatures that we want. We have a cantrip. We have a wasteland for like a besiege you, as we were discussing. We have days. Like, this hand is basically a force of will away from being pretty much everything we want.
Yeah.
So yeah, we keep it. We accept, hey, if they turn one combo us, they turn one combo us. They got it. And then they do this. They Lotus Petal, and we're like, oh, hey, well, I guess they are going to
got the turn one,
and they ponder. And this was confusing because...
Did they shuffle? I don't know if we can check that.
I'm not sure if you can pull out the chat.
Yeah, it looks like I'm supposed to have it all, but...
maybe if you hit hide chat and then maybe click it again, it'll pop up.
Yeah. I guess it didn't.
Apparently not. That's odd. We had the chat popped up for a previous replay.
Right.
It's been forever since I've used this function, but they Lotus Petal Ponder, so they kept a 7, and then they basically mulled to 5, and then they played a land, and then they fetch again, and then they cantrip again. Which my first inclination is like, if you have a Lotus Petal Ponder hand, that kind of implies that your hand is insane in some regard, to justify making that play. But this is sneak and show, so it's not like tests where they go Lotus Petal Ponder, or turn 1 Chrome Mox exiles Ponder, cast Brainstorm, kill you on turn 1. It's Seek and Show where they're more resource heavy as a deck. So, they're down to 5 cards on the play game 2, and it's just pretty confusing. So,
Yeah.
I think they follow up with another cantrip here.
Which added to the confusion, because that's one card that is not part of the nuts.
Right. At this point, we're counting the cards in their hand, and it's just like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And they play out another Lotus Petal. And I want to say we elect to Thoughtseize them because, like, that sequence heavily...
Just because we want to
AIH.
know. We want to know more than...
Yeah.
At least for me, I wanted to know more than actually winning this game.
Well, part of it is the information, but also part of it is that their play heavily screams, hey, I have show and tell plus a payoff. And
Right.
they didn't. They had all of this mana. So it's just like, the Lotus Petal Ponder was mostly just them burning resources. They didn't need to do that. I get that you get like the Ponder, take the best card, shuffle on turn 1 with your fetch, but keeping the Lotus Petal is like way more value. And I guess they felt fine burning the Lotus Petal because they have so much mana, but it didn't matter. And I think here we took the Cunning Wish just because right now we're sitting on dazes, so we can't really set up a line where we get to counter the Cunning Wish, even though the Preordain is actually just probably a higher value card in terms of the coherency of their deck. But Cunning Wish could lead to some pretty hairy spots. Maybe they could set up a line where they kill our Delver, or like get a wipe away for Dreadhorde or something like that. So we just take we take the tutor.
Right. Knowing that they had the Sol land in their hand, of course.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we feel pretty far ahead, even though nothing's happened.
Well, we aren't really ahead. We can die at any time. So here, what we really need was another land so that we can have this double daze do something. Because, like, if the upside of their hand, the situation is their hand has a bunch of lands, right? So they just have a bunch of blinks. The downside is that our primary form of interaction is daze, and they have a soul land. So
Right. Just neutered.
if they have a good right, so we're sitting kind of on a 4-card hand, and if they draw well, they could just kill us. So here,
Here we preordain because
right, we, Brainstorm would be insane if we hit a land, and this Preordain would have been great as a Brainstorm. Hitting Delver plus a land is totally perfect. But here we're just going to take the land, play our Delver, have double days.
Yeah, we just didn't want to get locked, Brainstorm locked.
And we just need to fade, a payoff spell for a turn, and then we can maybe set up something.
At this point, it's great because both of our dazes are now online. Although it's losing value, obviously. So if we can find a way to shuffle it back, that would be optimal.
Right. And what's interesting here is they Brainstorm, and they don't shuffle. And we know that they have Ancient Tomb in hand. So we know that they're Brainstorm locked, and maybe they're going to play around days for their payoff. But, here we want to find a Thoughtseize, I think it was, and I think that's what we blind flip Delver on.
Yes. And this is...
So it's just...
No, I think it's a no-brainer. I don't know why I attack first.
We attack first. the reason to attack here first is in case they have like some form of interaction for Delver. These Sneak and Show players will often board in like Pyroblasts, and sometimes your Delver will die. So we get our 3 damage in.
Mm-hmm. But they saw the
And
Thoughtseize.
Yeah, they saw the Thoughtseize. And then, you know, we get immediately rewarded because they had an Abrade.
Yes, we got an extra 3 damage in.
And I want to say their hand was just pretty bad here.
So why didn't they Abrade to kill the Delver while it was attacking?
I'm not sure. Maybe they
wanted to potentially hold up Impulse if we didn't Thoughtseize for some crazy reason.
Potentially that. There's also a world where like we don't necessarily cast the Thoughtseize, or we sequence our spells such that we do a bunch of cantripping and then cast Thoughtseize and then like can't redeploy a threat. So taking 3 there is arguably fine because we could mess up our sequencing on our turn. But here we are. We take Show and Tell. It's the best card in their hand. We know they're going to have to use Impulse to undo their Brainstorm. And then we just play our Dreadhorde because, we need a threat. Plus we need to just maybe flashback a Thoughtseize or whatever.
Sure. And at this point, I think we already discussed both Seiju, and it was just, there's no reason to snap off any Wastelands at this point.
Well, we knew that we thought about Boseiju, but here, because we were still sitting on the double days, I think we decide to go ahead and Wasteland eventually on this turn cycle, but I want to say we Thoughtseize this turn. And then I think we ended up clicking through our second main phase, and then we ended up brainstorming in the end step. So we'll talk about what happened, and then there was like a Kozilek's return, but we take the Force of Will. We don't really care about the Kozilek's return here.
Yeah, we're immune to that.
And then we end up brainstorming here to try and find a surgical extraction was the argument, and I think we end up just like putting back double cantrip, eventually holding the.
We put back 1 daze, and so we didn't put back 2 dazes. I don't know if it was a misclick on our part, or we just wanted to keep 1 daze.
I think the idea was like we keep 1 daze, we have a ponder, and then if we want the second daze, we can brainstorm into it.
Got it.
And I guess we decided to wait 1 more turn on the Wasteland here. So I think here we go for another Brainstorm, saving the Thoughtseize for a later turn. Find the second Wasteland and get to set up a nice turn of just double Wasteland, play second Dreadhorde with the intent of just, comboing off, as it were, with Young Pyromancer the next turn.
Right. And at this point, the opponent concedes.
Yep, we're super far ahead. We get to Thoughtseize preordain, and, our dazes are hard counters now. They've been floundering with, they don't have their combo pieces. They have a Kozilek's return that doesn't do anything. So we're just sitting pretty.
They played an Impulse, right? So they must have just gotten rid of their Sol Land at some point. I know it's a minor detail. I'm just trying to retrace that.
They brainstormed and they impulsed, and I think they put the Ancient Tomb on top and impulsed it away.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I guess the Sneak and Show matchup here was pretty standard. We were just perplexed by that keep. It didn't look like it was the nuts, and it wasn't the nuts. And other than that, I think it was pretty standard. It would have been fun for me personally to see surgical in action, because quite honestly, I had not ever sided that in against Sneak and Show, but I definitely understand your arguments for doing so.
Yeah, I just think it's better than a lot of the other cards that we can board in. And when you're a Thoughtseize deck, like there are going to be games where you just Thoughtseize Surgical Show and Tell, and the game kind of ends on the spot. Or, like I said, sometimes you're going to fight a big war and then you're going to draw the Surgical and be able to buy yourself more time to close out the game because you cut off the Show and Tell or Sneak Attack lines and just left them with, a lower density of cards that actually do anything.
Right. And I think it's because I respect the opponent playing Arcanist or Artisan that I tend to keep in more lightning bolts as opposed to putting in the surgicals, but I could definitely see that argument. Or maybe there's a world in which I can still play 2 or 3 bolts and just remove other things for surgicals. I don't know how you feel about that or think about that.
I wouldn't have more than 2 bolts in. 90% of the time it's just Lava Spike. It can close out the game and shorten the clock, but Grixis Delver can play a much more grindy, like mid-range or control-y style game against Sneak and Show. So you don't necessarily need to worry as much about the clock. Like your first initiative is just to impede them with, killing them being the close second. Whereas and because you have Dreadhorde, you have Thoughtseize, you have like these very proactive ways of not only interacting with them, but also like getting card advantage and recouping your losses. Whereas like something like Nimble Mongoose, Stifle, Rug Delver, I usually keep in 2, maybe 3 lightning bolts, sometimes all 4 against certain combo decks like Sneak and Show or Reanimator is one where I'll keep in more lightning bolts because that deck isn't as good at recouping cards. So you need like these pseudo time walk effects. But I wouldn't worry too much about Dreadhorde or Artisan.
Yeah.
Like in the dark, Artisan you can hit with a Pyroblast, so you have that answered. Dreadhorde, I'm not sure how common it is. If it is really common, keep in more bolts, right? But in the dark, I'd be inclined to not respect that card until I see it. And you can go from there. Maybe there's more value in Brazen Borrower, but I think the Lightning Bolt is better than Borrower, and I don't think that effect is really something you want or need. So this was a pretty textbook game or match of, we got to play some threats, we got to have our disruption, and game 2 our opponent didn't really do anything, so we just got to run over them.
Makes sense. So thank you so much, Lawrence, for following through and helping us with the play and the overall league. We finished with an overall 4-1 record, which I personally am super excited about. What was lost in the initial recording was just that I had never done this well with Grixis Delver before, at least on Magic Online, and it just seems like there's some lines here that I would not have done on my own. And so I want to thank you so much for spending the time to kind of go through all this and really showing us how it's really done.
Yeah, no problem.